doing some different stuff here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to set it off for the smoke room today. Matter of fact, let's really set it off. All right. We got to set it off. All right, y'all, how y'all doing? This is Vocab Malone, and like I said before, welcome to the smoke room. So what it is every now and then when I can, I've been trying to do it every Sunday, but it doesn't work out to do every Sunday. I do something called the smoke room. You can step into the smoke room, and you can ask any kind of question you got to me. You can discuss whatever. It's nice if you have some kind of manners or professional decorum or, you know, something like that. There's some people who are probably banned for life, but pretty much everybody can come in. And the way it works is you come in through Skype. So sometimes I open up a Zoom room, but then other times I just rock it where you just got to call in through Skype. So right now I'm going to bring up my Skype. All right, Skype is officially online now, and you call in through Skype and you ask any question. You talk to me, we discuss stuff, and the emphasis is on disagreements, but you don't have to necessarily disagree. Now, I will say I'm a little tired today, so excuse me if I ain't killing the game, you know what I mean? So yeah, a shout out to Eliza J setting it off for his super chat. Says, love these smoke rooms. Want to keep these coming every month. Praying for cordial, respectful dialogue. Amen, sis. Amen. Amen. Oh wait, how do I do that? And I'm gonna put your comment down here. Oops, I wasn't supposed to do that. Put your comment down here in the smoke. What? Why is it? Anyways, and I see Apostle for Yahweh Bahashem Yeshua Shai says, why not stream? I don't know what you mean by that, but do you mean why not Steam? There's Abu Kammer. Shout out to Isaiah Robertson. That is my man. Hey, it's beautiful to see you, brother Isaiah. When exactly is that book dropping? Because I'm gonna get it right when it comes out, and I definitely want everybody that rocks on the channel to get it. So let me know about that information if you could. Shout out to Isaiah Braxton, D New, BK Apologist. That's my man SOC. Everyone subscribe to him as well. And we also got Nate 2D2 Warrior Woman up in here. Who did I miss? Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Andrea Cruz. Hey, what's up, Emmanuel? Anyway, so Skype is open. So the way it works is you hit me up at Vocab Malone. All right, August 25th. Okay, shout out to you, bro. I got it. All right, so that's the way it works is you hit me up at Vocab Malone on Skype, and I'll bring you on. You got to show your face. That's kind of a rule. You know, we don't want a bunch of random anonymous people, right? So show your face, but Skype is up right now, and I'm going to actually start off right now with something somebody was hitting me off the other day. Hey, shout out to Phil Fox. I was trying to wait until your show was over, my bro. That's one reason why I got started a little bit late. Plus, I wanted to add some sound effects, little effects, you know, so that's what's going on with that. All right, switch him over to the main screen for today's show. And we do have Justice chilling in the back. Okay, now, smoke here. You know what? Let me do this. Let me put the Skype on the screen. And so if somebody wants to call, they can see it right there. They'll be able to see. Okay, so let's see. Call in via Skype. Vocab Malone. Okay. Okay, so now it's right there on the screen. I should probably put like the Skype logo or something on there. What do you guys think? I could just do something like that. All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the first one right away here while we're waiting people to come in. From Jeremiah 30. Jeremiah 30. And the reason why is it has to do with, you know, the smoke and all that. The other day, we posted some stuff on the Vocab Facebook page. And a guy named Richmond Grant put, sorry, vocab, you are a lying devil. You refuse to read Jeremiah 30. And I said, what aspect about Jeremiah 30 is significant to you? 16th verse. Is that the main verse you think I should deal with? So that was our little conversation. I know, I know it doesn't always work like that. So I can tell it's, of course, a Hebrew Israelite, because I could tell by the verse what they were trying to get at. So there's that. So I figured, you know what, let's start off with that. And then I'll take those from the live chat if nobody calls in Skype, okay? So that's how we're going to do it. So let's take a look here at Jeremiah 30. All right, got Jeremiah 30:16 up. All right. And here's what it says. Here's what it says here. I think I saw some activity on Skype. Was somebody trying to hit me up there? No, it doesn't look like it. I thought I saw something move, but it doesn't look like it. No. Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to go back to Jeremiah 30. We'll have to go back. Okay, listen, I'll bring you on, but we need to see your face, and we'll do this thing. I'll have to go back to Jeremiah 30 later on. So, all right, there you are. Here, I'm gonna bring you so people can see you here in just a second. Just give me a second here so I can bring you on screen here, my ma'am. Well, now you're on screen, and I'm not. You don't want to do that. Do it that way. Now there's two of me and none of you. Now there's two of me and one of you. Okay, now we're set. Okay, the ACP channel. You are on the smoke room, and it's saying reconnecting, poor connection network. Hopefully, everything works out. So, hey, welcome. How you doing, man? What you got for me? Hey, you are live. You are in the smoke room. We can see you, but we haven't been able to hear you yet. Go ahead.
Good mind, but
I'm not able to hear anything you're saying. Your connection, it's telling me your connection's weak. Do you have a strong spot in the house you can get to? I don't know if you got a strong spot.
Well, I'm starting to be able to hear you now. Hear me?
All right, excellent. Go ahead. What you got, bro?
Fantastic. So first off, I just want to, thank you for having these things open. It's obviously something not a lot of people do, so thanks for that. So I actually wanted to talk about some of the stuff from the Confederate Apologist videos.
Okay.
That you would put up with MJ Jackson and I forget the other guy's name from True ID.
Oh yeah, Adam Coleman.
Adam.
Yeah.
So just to kind of identify myself, I am the YouTuber known as the Synagogue that you've probably seen down there. So during that conversation, there was quite a few things that I had kind of taken issue with, and to be clear, I'm not some white supremacist or neo-Nazi or anything like that. I just want to make sure we get that out of the way before anything. But I do definitely have firm views on the way that we should view historical figures, and specifically some controversial historical figures like this. It seemed to me, like listening to the things that you guys were saying, first off, and I don't think it was deliberate because I think most people are just taught these things, but there were certain things that were just being assumed as accurate when really the arguments for their accuracy were pedantic at best. And then there was other things.
Sure, you got any examples? Maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some real quick. I just want to point out these examples will be a little bit smaller than the second thing I was going to mention. But so, for example, things like the claim that Robert E. Lee was not actually a good general, which to me, as somebody who likes military history, is like that doesn't even make any sense. So like we never say that Julius Caesar is a bad general because he committed a genocide against the Gauls. So why, just because Robert E. Lee owned slaves, are we now discounting this brilliant military campaign? Because by all objective standards, it was. I mean, even Grant, the guy who beat him, lost something like 2-1. You know what I mean? As far as the actual men he was losing. Grant, in fact, it's well known that Grant was kind of a pit bull. In fact, Lincoln said, I can't get rid of this man. He fights, right? And that was kind of the idea. He refused to give in to Lee. But if you actually look at the body counts from the Overland Campaign and the tactical.
Right. Well, I think we never really focused on that. I think there may have been one line where somebody, it may have been me, said something along the lines, he may be somewhat overrated. I do think there's a lionization of Lee that happens with pro Confederate apologist types, but I think he might be somewhat overrated. And Lee being overrated, inversely, I think Grant might be somewhat underrated. That's all I'm saying. And he made massive mistakes at the Battle of Gettysburg. But that's not really the issue with whether we should memorialize him with a statue, right? Because we understand all generals, the bravest, the wisest, all military men make mistakes in combat. Napoleon got really sloppy towards the end of his campaigns and started off brilliant and then got really sloppy. Started just doing frontal attacks, stuff like that. So I don't necessarily think we're going to have a massive issue with that. No one is saying, well, at least I wasn't saying that Lee did not have prowess as a general. I'm saying I think sometimes Southern apologists overrate him. So there's a difference between him being no good and being overrated. So I think there's an argument to be made that he's overrated because he's lionized, but that's not the argument why I would say we shouldn't memorialize him. You see what I'm saying?
Well, and I certainly do understand that, but I think the reason why I think that such a thing is important is first off, I do think that there is, and it's not, I think, something that is deliberate amongst almost everyone. I think long ago and far away, there was people who deliberately wanted to discount certain things that the Confederates did. Because, here's an uncomfortable fact, and not that it has anything to do with the stream necessarily, but, a lot of the Confederates were good generals. In fact, they had better generals than we, the United States, did. It's kind of consistent.
Maybe they did, but, you got to explain their loss somehow. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's ways you can explain it.
We got to explain their loss. And I don't think Lee, based on certain things I've looked at, I don't think Lee was always impressed with all of his generals, maybe as much as sometimes Southern apologists or Confederate apologists are. And once Stonewall died, I don't know if the pickings were so great as we might think. But no one's saying that these are horrible. It's not about horrible generals or military. It's not about that. It's that should they be memorialized? Because I think when they're being generals, they're attacking the United States. Like we can recognize Rommel in World War II as a very formidable opponent, right? We could agree on that. Rommel was a formidable opponent in World War II. However, should the United States memorialize him? I don't think so. We could recognize it and say, okay, no statues though in the United States. You know what I mean? That's what it's about.
Right, but I think there's a couple things that are kind of being missed. The first thing is that I think that when you look at these generals and the way people discount them, it's part of a narrative that tries to label the South as something it was not. Bear in mind, like I said, happy the Union won, not a Confederate apologist. However, Rommel wasn't American. I think that's the first thing that just needs to be established.
While Robert E. Lee was fighting, was he fighting for America?
Well, you could argue, there's an interesting thing. And in fact, one of the other small things I took issue with.
I would say he was not. He was fighting against the United States. Why did Robert E. Lee fly the flag of the Northern Virginia Army? Why was that flown into battle? Why wasn't the United States flag flown into battle? Because he was not fighting for the United States.
Well, see, and this does get to some of the more concrete issues I think that I kind of have with the general idea in the stream, right? What we decided as a country after we defeated the South was that we were going to and of course, in some instances it took 100 years, in some instances it took a couple months, but in numerous different ways we established we were going to treat these people as if they were United States citizens to better mend our chasm that we had here. This massive
hold on. Yes, that's a pragmatic consideration that Lincoln was working towards, and Reconstruction kind of got botched after Lincoln was assassinated by Southern sympathizers, of course. That's true.
Right.
However, there was a lost indictment of Robert E. Lee and Jefferson Davis and some of the other top guys. They were going to indict them. It fell through. The administration after, it fizzled out, but there's a whole book. It's literally called The Lost Indictment of Robert E. Lee. We mentioned it in the stream. So you are correct. The average Confederate was going to be brought back in, similar to the British view of what they thought they were going to do with the United States when we were fighting against them for our independence. The British said, hey, when this is over, we're going to have to commence commerce, because they thought they were going to win, right? They thought they didn't think they were going to slaughter the whole population. They were going to have a good business relationship, and they spanked their child, and everything's all good. Well, when the Confederacy lost, which Lee being, if he's such a good general, it's actually a bad thing, because it drags out the war 2 years longer than it needed to be dragged out. But when that happened, the top brass was going to get indicted for treason. And there's a constitutional case that could be made that Lee, Davis, and some of the top brass, they were treasonous. And that was going to be the main charge.
And there absolutely is a case that could be made, but I think that we could argue, and I certainly would, that not only is that obviously just the divine will of God that those things got lost, but I think it was for a reason. Well, I think it would have caused
they found them
problem.
Again. I mean, it got lost in the shuffle of things. I mean, I think it would have been. I don't think it's fair that Lee got to live out his days the way he did. Frankly,
Why though? What did Robert E. Lee do that was more morally wrong than a Grant or a Sherman or a Washington?
Well, Grant, that's where I don't understand your moral equivalency. How can you not see that Grant was not a traitor? He was not treasonous towards the United States. Number two, the cause related to states' rights, of course, is enslavement of persons. So I'm going to go with the person fighting on the side of freedom, regardless of the Union not being perfect. That's not about whether the Union is perfect or anything like that. We all know that, because Jim Crow happened afterwards. It took a long time for things to get taken care of properly, and there's still ramifications today. Facts. However, only one side said there's going to be an Emancipation Proclamation. The South wanted to conquer Cuba and to have a perpetual slave producing colony. I mean, they wanted a little slave empire. So I don't see how I can say Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis are morally equivalent in the cause that they fought for. I don't see how you would say that.
Well, there's way too much historical context, I think, that you're missing. First off, one of the things that needs to be established, because it is true, and you can look this up in virtually any history book, including a history book that will conclude against what I'm saying. 4 states, Virginia included, seceded because they felt it was immoral to invade who they considered to be their former countrymen. That includes Stonewall, that includes Johnston, that includes Jeb Stuart, that includes Robert E. Lee. They're all Virginians. And by the way, even though he's from North Carolina, it includes Longstreet as well, because Longstreet fought in the Army of Northern Virginia.
Can you say it again? I'm not sure if I understood the point you're trying to make. I'm not sure. You're saying they thought it was wrong to invade the Union, but why? But they did invade the Union.
No. So they thought the state of Virginia, as well as 3 others, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the 3 others were Arkansas and Tennessee. And I can't remember what the 3rd one would have been, or 4th one, but there was 4 of them total. Only 7 initially seceded. Virginia was one of them, and Virginia is, of course, the important one because it's the one that includes Robert E. Lee and all of them. Virginia actually, when it seceded, the Congress of Virginia was saying the reason that they were seceding, and by the way, Robert E. Lee parroted this a month earlier when he was asked to take command of the Union Army, right? Because he was a soldier in the American Army before the Civil War. Robert E. Lee actually, as well as the Congress of Virginia, said that the reason that they would not join is because they felt it was immoral for Lincoln to raise an army to invade his own countrymen. Right?
Okay, I've heard this argument before. Why was Lincoln raising an army? What was the South doing in the South? And here's the answer. They were attacking all the military forts, creating massive caches of weapons. They were stockpiling weapons by invading forts that were what they considered now their territory. So Lincoln raising an army, like this is not like Lincoln raising an army, then the South was like, oh, we've got to fight. I mean, there's a massive loss of memory about what the South was doing with forts in their territory before even the first shot was ever fired.
Well, I speak specifically of Virginia, not of the South as a whole, because I'm talking particularly about the men that we lionize, right? Quote unquote, because I do agree that obviously God is no respecter of persons. We shouldn't really lionize anyone, but not the point. Right. The point is when we're looking at where we want to say, why was such and such a person fighting? Why was such and such a state fighting? So on and so forth. Right. The reason is not, well, because we wanted to oppress black people. I mean, and that's just simply not the case. Nor was the reason why people were invading because we want to free black people. That it became that. I'm glad it did.
Have you heard the Cornerstone speech?
The Cornerstone speech by not Hamilton. Sorry. It's the vice president of the Confederacy.
Vice President of the South. Now, Now, you just said it's not because we want to enslave black people, right? That's what you just said.
hang on.
What
Hold up.
does he say the cornerstone is? The answer is it's a peculiar institution. He is saying the
Right.
cornerstone of our Confederacy is slavery. It is because
Right,
they want to
that's
enslave black
absolutely
people.
true.
And why? Because they're greedy and they justify their greed with racism. That's what the elite of the South did. That's what they were willing to lose lives over. I mean, the
That's
cornerstone
absolutely true.
speech.
But once again, that is the core states, those 7 original states, right, that are making that. And it's only the politicians in those states that are claiming that. It's not the Longstreets and the Jacksons and the Lees. In fact, as you may well know, Lee was a very big proponent of getting everybody in the South to drop the cause after the war was over. Longstreet was an abolitionist who fought for black rights after the war was over. Jackson taught black people the Bible, which was very frowned upon, by the way.
Yes, it is
before
true.
the war,
out of all the guys, Jackson would be the one that I would most want to have breakfast with and see if we could have a good conversation. However, even Jackson, who is, and from what I know, sort of the best of the best out of these guys, even Jackson, even as he was, you are correct, he was breaking the law to have Sunday school for people of African descent. That is true, to teach them the Bible. That is true. However, he still was a white supremacist. He still thought it was part of his duty. If you read his thoughts on the matter, it is still out of a sense of moral superiority and intellectual and spiritual superiority. Sort of, he had to do this for like basically dumb children kind of thing. However, I do respect the fact he was willing. I'm just saying, you got to read his thoughts on the matter.
And I understand that.
He is a more complicated man. He is a more complicated man. I'm not taking that away from him, and I hear you. But it's a bad move to then, if I'm not saying you're doing this, but anybody to say because Jackson did that, therefore look at what great guy he is. At the end of the day, Jackson was willing to take up arms against the United States and fight for people who said our cornerstone of our Confederacy is enslaving black persons. I mean, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, regardless of what else he did or didn't do, that's what he did. And he lost his life in that process. You know, he was killed by his own men. I mean, he was killed by fellow Confederates.
And I even do think personally, it's my personal belief that they would have won had Jackson been around, and that God had to get rid of him for that purpose, because I do think that it was the will of God. But
the South just didn't have the infrastructure. There's no way the South could have beat the United States.
Well, I mean, that's what everybody said about the United States when we defeated British. You know what I mean?
But it is a fact of the industry in the North and the logistical system in the North, and simply was just going to overwhelm the South. No matter how long the South could drag out sort of guerrilla warfare and this kind of thing, hit and run techniques, no matter how long they could drag it, at the end of the day, the United States had the infrastructure, and they just weren't going to be beat because the South had not transitioned into the kind of society needed to support a war effort. It was just a matter of time before the South lost. And to be frank with you, I think the South underestimated the North. They thought it was a bunch of Yankees who couldn't shoot straight, and they were wrong. They were simply wrong.
You know what? I would completely agree with that. In fact, I would even go a little bit further in saying that those first 2 years of the war kind of filled the Army of Northern Virginia with this idea that they could not possibly be beaten. I think that's the explanation for Gettysburg, because, you know, it's interesting, and I don't want to get too much on this because there is another point I wanted to make, but you look at Lee at Fredericksburg, right, and he's actually doing exactly what Winfield Scott Hancock and Gettysburg is going to do to him at Pickett's Charge, and Longstreet points this out to Lee. He's, you know, saying that this is nonsense. You're going to go over a mile of open field and be just massacred. You know that this is going to happen because you've done this to the enemy. And Lee just, you know, had this idea that it's almost like his army can't possibly be defeated. And of course, Pickett's Charge happened. He realizes it. That's all. But the point there being it was desperation. I don't think they really felt like they had a choice. But I do agree. I think it was sort of a desperate attempt because they knew, like, this is a long shot. You know, this is a long shot. Having Jackson recently dying was, I mean, hugely demoralizing, because I think at the time there was a consensus that Jackson might have been the greatest American general of all time. I don't know if that's true today, but I think in the 1860s that probably was the case. Not the point, though, because I do want to get to something else. You said in the end Jackson did end up taking up arms against the United States to fight for a peculiar institution. You and I know you do, so I don't say this in any sort of mocking sense, but it is somewhat rhetorical. But you do realize I could levy those exact same accusations almost verbatim to virtually every rebel who you've ever enjoyed in your entire life. For example, Washington owned slaves, was a traitor, absolutely. He was even a member of the British Army, married into the British aristocracy, right? He was fighting in, not only was he fighting in, but he's the catalyst for the French Indian War, which is commonly known in Europe as the 7 Years' War. And he betrayed the people of the British Empire, which was not very oppressive, by the way. By our modern standards, King George III was by no means, I mean, he was no more tyrannical than Barack Obama or Donald Trump, right? I mean, we're just being honest. He really was not doing crazy.
It's true that by certain standards, what George did was not, I mean, he was no Idi Amin or something like that. That's true.
Right. It was a 2.5% tax on tea.
At the end of the day, they still were doing taxation without representation. At the end of the day, they still sort of saw the American colonies as basically a big piggy bank. And the Americans had grown too much in their taste for freedom, and they just weren't going to put up with it. Certainly there's hypocrisy at the core of America's documents versus America's actions. But the reason I said America's documents in her founding is to draw your attention to the fact of America's founding documents. They are radically different than the founding documents. And by that, we're going to look at certain speeches and the Articles of Secession and things like that of the Confederacy. And specifically, things about who we are as a people, right? From the Declaration to the Constitution, because when you're talking about a rebellion, you're kind of more talking about the Declaration of Independence, right? And how does the Declaration of Independence begin? Now, if that would have been properly applied, as well as the sentiment found throughout, then slavery would have had to have been eliminated at jump. It was not properly applied. So my point is that the United States Revolution, right, our war for independence was for different things, even if the actions did not always match. I can't make a one-to-one correlation with that and the rebellion of the South, because it's two different causes, right? And when I compare the Articles of Secession with the Declaration of Independence, for example, I see something radically different. Don't you?
Well, yes and no, and let me kind of explain why, because I do see you in the sense of, like, obviously the Articles of Secession are mentioning in particular that peculiar institution, as they called it, right? Mm-hmm. However, what I think needs to be properly understood, and I say this immensely proud of my nation and the fact that we have established this country. However, I think as a historian, we need to put our patriotism and ideology behind a little bit and just examine things objectively, right? The United States colonies were essentially a petulant child who told daddy no. I mean, that's honestly what it is. It was a 2.5% tax. I currently in the state of Idaho, right, and being taxed by people over in Washington, D.C., some 20% of my income, right? These people were getting mad over 2.5% taxes on tea and a massacre with Crispus Attucks, which was immensely hypocritical because nobody gave a damn about Crispus Attucks during his lifetime. And we know that because we know the country was incredibly racist at the time. You know what I mean? So it was like, it was total nonsense and propaganda.
Yeah. And I hear you. I'm not necessarily a United States apologist. You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying by that is that there's a difference between the Confederacy and what was happening there, because you were drawing sort of what I felt like was an unfair, equal kind of parallel between the two things. And all I'm saying is I'm drawing out the distinctions. I agree with you that there are certainly issues. I mean, I already mentioned the hypocrisy in the United States between her founding documents and her actions for hundreds of years, right? I mean, that's a real serious problem. That's an issue. But when you look at the documents themselves and see, like Martin Luther King recognizes, he would say, what I'm trying to do here is call America to live up to the high ideals that she's put down on paper. If we're going to talk about the South, I mean, when I look at the Cornerstone speech, for example, listen to what Stephen says. This is just 2 lines. I just want to read this so people it doesn't just go over. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite ideas. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man. That slavery, subordination to the superior race, is its natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great philosophical, physical, and moral truth. This truth has been slow in the process of its development, like all other truths in the various departments of science. He's literally saying we're going to be the first government in the world founded upon white supremacy.
Right, but can we understand some context though? I mean, people thought Alexander Stephens was a nut job, even at the time, even the Confederates.
Why'd they make him VP
Alexander
then?
Stephens was,
Why'd they make him VP?
well, I don't know. Hang on. Let's be honest here. That's not how it works, right? Donald Trump is considered a nut job by many people, and he's the president of the United States, right? So let's be clear about that, right? Politics works in interesting ways.
Ain't no one going. I ain't going to war for no Donald Trump though.
Okay, but to be fair, neither was Robert E. Lee. Was not going to war for no Alexander Stephens. He was going to war for the state of Virginia and what he believed to be his homeland. So, and as well as the fact that Virginia had its own context.
So are you telling me Jefferson Davis as a VP, whose idea of the foundation of the very Confederacy is radically different than his own? Like Jefferson Davis.
You should listen to the words of Jefferson Davis, my friend.
He was a horrible racist. Jefferson Davis was a horrible racist.
Hold on, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying, because they all were racist. Lincoln, Grant, every single one of them. If you want to throw the racist card, which is fair, all of them. Blanket, not an exception. Including, by the way, W.E. Du Bois and Frederick Douglass and all them. Everybody was racist at that time.
What?
Frederick Douglass,
man. Frederick Douglass was racist? Help me out on that.
Frederick Douglass was not a big fan of white people. W.E.B. Webb, right, Du Bois was not a big fan of white people. Nat Turner, of course, slaughtered them. And I'm not saying this to discount anybody.
A few things. You're talking about W.E. Du Bois. We're talking about the 1900s now. We're not even in the Civil War era. At least Douglas is like kind of closer to where we need to talk about. But he was still not a leader of any nation or anything. So we're kind of like
the point is everybody was racist, including the abolitionists.
But there's some abolitionists who were. There's different types of abolitionists, right? There's some abolitionists who were abhorred the institution of slavery, but they still thought black folks should remain in an inferior place. There's others though who were not like that. And you got to remember, it's hard for me to think of. You're saying Douglas is a racist. I mean, he worked with white abolitionists. I see no indication to that fact. Here, let me see. It looks like somebody else has come on. Hey, we got a few minutes left because someone else is popping up, and I want to make sure I bring them on. So go ahead. I'll let you finish up.
Yeah, I just want to wrap up with two things. The first thing, what I was going to say about Stephens, Stephens was considered to be completely insane by Jefferson Davis, by Judah Benjamin, by Johnston, by a lot of people. Davis, in fact, you should look at some of the stuff. First off, Davis was completely contrary to the Confederate Constitution. He was not big on the whole states' rights thing. He actually wanted a nation quite like the one Lincoln was running, and he failed at it tremendously because he was a horrible politician. Stephens, on the other hand, was somebody who wanted a old-style aristocracy in the manner of old-fashioned Britain, but also wanted an incredibly libertarian ideal for that old-style aristocracy, which has actually made him, interestingly enough, used by a lot of Southern libertarians and constitutionalists for some of his old words. Not that counts, of course, because all the other things he said. Amongst those, you're talking about here, his words against black people, right? He also had words where he would say things like, the poor white man would eventually also be taking some of these slaves to make sure, because basically he thought there was no way that the black population would always be constantly maintaining the proper population of slaves that would be required. They're not going to have the nutrition, so on and so forth, to produce as many people as everybody else is going to, and so a lot of these poor white people will eventually just be pushed to the side with them as well. And actually, if you've ever read some of Harry Turtledove's novels, he kind of toys with some of these ideas, only instead of using poor white Confederates, he uses things like Mexicans and Cubans and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, the point being, Stephens was, even at the time, by his own people and the vice and the president who he was representing, considered to be completely insane because he was.
Even I find it a strange argument that you're saying the VP who's saying that is insane. But let's just say that's the case. You still have all these articles of secession that are nonstop mentioning how slavery needs to be preserved, and they're extremely concerned to maintain the inferior status of the enslaved population. I mean, this is all over the documents. It's sort of a preoccupation versus, even though I recognize the hypocrisy, the words on paper matter because then you can hold people to the standard one way or the other, right? Versus When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and to nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, it goes on to say that these rights are ultimately from God, not from men. Now, was that properly implemented? No. And part of the reason was because to get the South to sign on to the rebellion against Britain and eventually the Constitution, we couldn't get rid of slavery yet. So that's part of the reason. Part of the reason goes back to the South. And even back then, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Adam said, one day it might have been Jefferson, I forget who it was, but said, but one day basically we're going to have to deal with this and it's going to cost American blood. Recognize it would be a war. And there was. It was sort of prophetic. But I'll let you get the final thing. I got to get this next person in here. What's your kind of final thing? I see you disagree. We could talk about this again. I'm okay for that. I just want to make sure in one show we move on to different people and all of that. So if you have any final things as far as that, the floor is yours.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the conversation. The last thing I would want to say is just simply what I am saying is not that Lee and Longstreet and Jackson and all these people were some saints or anything like that. And I do agree the Lost Cause has done a lot to make them look a lot better than they are. In fact, I did a debate with this on the Raging Atheist if anyone's interested, but not the point. I am simply saying that if we can recognize the historical context and forgive Washington his faults and Jefferson his faults and Martin Luther King his faults and Nat Turner his faults and so on, I don't see any reason why people like Jackson, Longstreet, and Lee, and I understand some of the Confederates didn't ever ask for it. I grant that. But a lot of them did, and a lot of them were fairly respectable human beings, fairly good Christian men. They made bad decisions, but in the historical context, the bad decisions were not as racially motivated as we think. And by the way, I would extend that I think it is time for us to Rommel is not Hitler. The people in Rommel's group are not the same as Hitler, right?
Well, I'll let that be the last word. I've got the next guy up. I appreciate you coming on, and hey, it's good to see you in the live chat. Maybe we can talk again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
God bless you.
Have a beautiful day. All right, welcome to the smoke room. I see a Pabst can of beer and a wallet and some books and some feet and a book called about the Jewish diaspora. And I see the guys with the big hats. Some of those hats can get.
Yes. So here, let me turn. I know you want to see my face. How do I? Let me see if I can turn this around.
Just flip it around. Yeah.
Let me see.
Are you celebrating the festival of booths out there or what?
Oh, I wish I was. I'm trying to figure out how to turn it on, sir. Okay, there it is. I see it. Wait.
Should be a little button. It's got like a little reverse there.
There it is. There he is.
What's popping? How you doing, man?
So you obviously see the books that I have here, right?
Mm-hmm. If you, real quick. I love the clouds, but if you could put behind you something actually darker, because the light, it makes your face. Yeah, there you go. Like maybe the trees or something, but not the pure clouds.
Well, it's not about my face. It's about the information, right?
I know, but it makes for a bad program when it's like there you go, like a random silhouette. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, though.
So I do have a question. So obviously, I've been doing some extensive research. Okay. And I want to show you something out of maybe just 2 of these books, not all of them.
Sure.
And I want to see
what's your name? What's your name you go by the way?
Raphael.
Oh yeah, you said that in the thing. My bad.
So I'm not going to go into all of these, but obviously you've probably seen this book, right?
Christopher Columbus and Participation of the Jews. Spanish. Yeah, I've heard about that book. I don't know if I have a copy of that. I might have a digital copy of that. Let me look. But go ahead. I'm listening.
So in this book, which is quoted by the Jewish Encyclopedia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Okay. In this book, it states that the Native Americans, that they are in fact the Israelites, the 10 lost tribes. Do you disagree with that?
What happened to? Hold on, we can talk about.
There it
that.
is. There it 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 is.
Okay.
Do you disagree with that?
Do I disagree that Native
You
Americans are the
disagree?
Israelites? Yes.
You disagree with this man right here, Kay Serling?
I don't know who that guy is. I don't know how he would know any. If he was claiming that, he would have to prove it just like anybody else, right?
Well, that's what the book is about. That's what the whole book is.
Well, I've got
So-
some fantastic books to the contrary. I'll give you.
Okay.
Oh, let me. There's a little bit about this. Let me give you some background on this. The
Well,
idea, Raphael, that Native Americans are Israelites is actually an older idea. It supersedes One West, as you're basically pointing out right now. So you are correct about that
anything about One
idea.
West.
I know, I'm just bringing out. It's older than Hebrew Israelism, is what I'm saying by that. However, the reasons why are fascinating. And what was going on at the time is that we had a bunch of people coming into what they call the New World, and they wanted to know, who are these people? How did they get here? And so what they ended up doing is making all these false parallels and false assumptions that these must be part of the lost tribes of Israel or something like that. And there's a whole research of study into this. And what happened is, that was in the air enough that some popular novels were written about it. For example, Smith's view of the Hebrews, which it appears that Joseph Smith somewhat plagiarized, or at least took the ideas for the Book of Mormon. And so I'm bringing it all back to this. The Book of Mormon and Mormon history has made the same exact claim, that Native Americans are primarily actually lost Israelites, just transplanted into a different continent. Now,
Yeah.
what's happened is some Mormons.
1829. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It is an older thing.
Yeah, some Mormons though have looked into this, and
Sir,
they recognize that this is not true. In fact, they've even edited the preface of the Book of Mormon because of this. They recognize that this is not true.
Right.
Huh?
No one's talking about Mormon.
Well, no,
I'm not talking.
well, you need to understand the context of this. Here's what I mean by that. Because what's happened is people who were Mormon academics, who were also involved in genetic studies, since they looked into this, they've realized that it's a false idea because the DNA doesn't match. Here, I'm going to grab some books on that. I'll let you go ahead and speak what you want to speak. I'm going to grab some books because I have some of these same books. Go ahead.
I never mentioned anything about One West. I only just mentioned the Jewish Encyclopedia of 1906. The Jewish. We're not mentioning Mormons here. This man is Kay Serling. He's Jewish. That's why this book, hence the title, Christopher Columbus and the participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese discoveries. So even besides that, I have another book here, and I would ask your audience to go and collect these books if they can. This book here is the Jewish Almanac, written by Richard Siegel and Carl Rhines. I'll wait for you to get back.
No, go ahead.
Because the idea.
I'm right here. I'm just grabbing a book off the shelf. Go ahead, my friend.
Free sponsor, Pabst Ribbon. No, I'm just playing. So, anyways, you said something very key. The idea that the Native Americans are Israelites go way past all of these people that you mentioned. And I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, it goes so far as back as to the prophet Ezra. Do you agree?
No, I do not. Go ahead, though.
Okay, well, then that would lead me to ask you, where is Arsareth?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I have to bring up my geography resources.
And next question I would like to ask you, sir, respectfully, because what you have to fail to realize, man, I'm not just going off of One West. I'm going off of, as you can see, other literature here that substantiates their claims. So my next question to you is, Mr. Vocab Malone, are you Jewish?
No, I'm not Jewish.
Not religion. I'm saying, are you Jewish?
No, I'm Sicilian and German primarily.
Yeah, there was a lot of crypto Jews over in there, so it's okay. So I'll take that.
Well,
so I'll move on to.
If any information came out about my family's history that we were descended from crypto Jews or something like that, then I would definitely let the world know. But as of now, that is not my understanding because from what I heard, I had some family members try to track down that very idea because they were curious about that. because there are some Jews with my same last name, but it was a dead end, meaning.
It wouldn't be surprising at this point in time that we all find out that you're actually a crypto Jew. So, anyways, I want to move on.
But hey, I mean, don't I look Sicilian to you? I mean, do you know what Sicilians look like? I look like a very stereotypical Sicilian. Bags under the eyes, big nose, olive skin. I'm Sicilian, bro. I'm Sicilian as could be. If you know what Sicilians look like, I look Sicilian. Gaining weight from eating too much pasta, you know, I'm Sicilian, bro.
It's not bad. It's not bad if you're Jewish. I mean, you would be related to Jesus Christ, right?
I know, but what I'm saying is, don't I look...
Oh, so you agree. So here's the thing. So now I'm getting some information.
What I'm saying is, don't I look Sicilian to you? I'm clearly Sicilian.
That's why I'm asking if you're a crypto Jew. If I thought you were Sicilian, I'd ask you that.
Okay.
So the fact that you say that your family's doing some research and you might be Jewish.
No, hold on. I want to clarify. Maybe I wasn't clear. Years ago, a couple people in the family did research to try to find out if that was true, because we knew someone with our last name that apparently wasn't related to us, who was like Ashkenazi Jew. That years ago. But when they tracked it, and they wanted it to be true, the family members who were tracking this down were hoping that there was some Jewish blood. They were hoping that was the case, but it all led to a dead end. It was not the case. And the fact,
it's a good thing, though. Just saying, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, right? It's good.
I don't really care. God has sovereignly made me how He wants to make me, and really, I'm glad I'm Sicilian, and so that's all I got to say really about that. I would just, however God made me is how He made me, right? You know what I mean? So that'd be up to Him. But I'm glad to be Sicilian. You know, Viva Italia.
I'm gonna stop beating around the bush and let's go into the information here. So, Mr. Reiser, crypto Jewish man, I know you're Jewish, bro. So these books, bro. These books. Get these books, man. Get these books. Go into the information, and I'm going to open up to the second volume. Let's deal with the facts. Stop beating around the bush.
Raphael, how do you know that I'm Jewish? Because I just told you a truthful statement, and you're trying to tell me you know more about me than I know about me.
You're probably just ignorant. You're probably just ignorant to the fact that you're Jewish, man.
How would you? But what about? How would you know that I'm Jewish, though?
Okay. Let's talk about the information.
No.
Isn't this
you just look? I'm not really gonna let this slide. You just said I was either lying or you know more about my family tree than I do. I want to know how you know either one of those.
Here, this is my answer to you. So when you flip to this page, guys, to page 84, right?
All right, let me help you out, bro.
If you can see, it says searching for the lost tribes. Now, this book is going to say what all these other books are going to say and what the Bible says. And it's going to say that the lost 10 tribes came over here to the Americas. Now, I'd like to read that for you real quick, if you don't mind, Mr. Reiser.
Are you bringing up Sanders' book? Is that what you're bringing up?
No, I'm bringing up your ancestors' book right here. You see this?
Hey, as soon as someone else calls, I'm probably gonna let you go because you're over here calling me a liar, dude. It's like, what's wrong with you, bro?
Say you're a liar.
But,
I never.
Well, you're saying my ancestors' book. It's not a book about Italians. It's not my ancestors' book.
Oh, there's Italian Jews. What are you saying? There's Sicilian Jews out there.
Not in our family. It's the Polinos. I'm not Italian Jew.
Well, do you want to do the information, or are you just gonna run away?
Well, listen. Hey, I do the smoke room, bro. I'm willing to take on all comers, right? Okay. You're not really doing anything except for asking cryptic questions about my family's history, acting like you know. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no really popping. But if you want to share some facts, go ahead and share them. But I just want you to know that if you're trying to prove Native Americans are Israelites, I've got information sitting right here to show you they're not. Okay. So it's not going to be a winning war for you. But go ahead.
Cool. I'm not here to win. I'm just here to present information.
All right.
Okay. So now, let me find it real quick. Let me flip to the page. 492. So we're going to go to 492. Now, everybody, if you can find this book, it's pretty expensive. It's called The Encyclopedia of the Jewish Diaspora: Origins, Experiences, and Culture. And in this book, they actually say that they converted to Judaism, that they're not actually Jews in this encyclopedia.
Who converted? Who converted?
Moving on.
Well, no, who you said they? Who converted?
Let me tell you. I'm gonna show you right now.
Because if you're gonna say they converted, my guess is you're gonna say Khazars. That's my guess, but you didn't say that, so you got to say who converted.
I'm gonna show you. Would you mind me if I just show you?
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. That's why I'm asking the question.
Awesome.
And so
Here we go.
is it your claim that all
Here we go.
claim that all modern day Jews, people claim to be Jews, that they all
I didn't make any claim.
Oh, well then come on. Be a man. Tell me what you're trying to say.
All right, so here's what I'm trying to say. You see this information here, Mr. Mark Reiser? What does it say?
It says Jews in Nigeria.
So this information that I'm about to bring out, are you going to disagree with this? You're going to disagree with scholars, Jewish scholars?
Oh, wait. Are you gonna disagree with Jewish scholars? Because they don't think black folks are Israelites and that they're all frauds. So what are you doing here? Are you gonna disagree with Jewish scholars? The question is, are the Jewish scholars right? It's not, do you disagree with Jews? I mean, I'll tell you one thing I disagree with Jewish scholars about, or for the most part, that they don't accept Jesus as a Messiah. So it depends what they're saying. So are you gonna disagree with Jewish scholars? I mean, what are you talking about?
Jewish scholars will say that he existed in secular history, right?
Most will recognize the existence of Jesus. They would deny his messianic status, though, is the problem.
Okay, that's fine. But the facts are that they agree that he existed and he walked the earth. Yes or no?
Most of them do, yeah.
Okay, then. So I don't care.
Well, I care because they're rejecting him as Messiah, bro. And that is to their own condemnation. Have you not read Romans 9 through 11? You know what I mean?
Let's read this right here. It says the Igbo people have many Jewish traditions. Noam Katz, current Israeli ambassador in Nigeria, and others point to their possible. We're not saying they are. They're just saying possible, right, Mr. Reiser?
Yeah. Just call me vocab, bro. I don't really know what you're trying to do.
Okay, Mr. Vocab. I mean, that's a rap name. Anyways, it says they're possible ancient Israelite origins. So here we see the Israeli ambassador, and then we see the term Israelite. So they make a distinction between Israeli and Israelite. Moving on, it says they are difficult to categorize. It says, but could be termed Israelites before the advent of the rabbis. What is that saying?
I'm waiting on. I'll let you interpret it.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, basically, what they're saying is before the rabbis even came into Africa, they were already having Jewish traditions that prove that they are Israelites, not Jewish, not converts, but they, in fact, were the ones that ran from Rome into the interiors of Africa. So now I'm going to bring out more information if you're willing.
Yeah. After I respond to what you just said there. Okay. So that's a fascinating claim. And even in the own source you're reading, of course, you see the speculative nature of it. Number one. Number two. What partially happened is a phenomenon that is similar to what happened in the United States, where people of European descent primarily are trying to figure out where do the people that we are now interacting with come from. And what a lot of missionaries did in various places, such as Nigeria, and Sister Nefertiti has done work on this. This is a commonly established fact for anybody who understands the initial kind of contact between the missionaries and a lot of folks in West Africa, is sometimes they would come across tribes and say, well, here's a similarity with this, here's a similarity with that. They do this, they do that. Maybe they're descendants of the lost tribes of the house of Israel. And part of the reason is because European missionaries had a strong desire to find the lost tribes of Israel, because a lot of them believed, according to Romans 11, that a massive end-time salvation of descendants of Israel would result in the hastening of the return of the day of the return of Jesus Christ. So because of that, they would say these things without really being experts without being experts in the field or really understanding anything or anything like that. And so what happens is some of the people in the West Africa, well, I'm trying to explain to you something that it seems like you're not aware of. What happened is a lot of people in West Africa, they started to basically believe these ideas taught to them by the missionaries, and some started converting into rabbinical Judaism. And so that's a fact. Now, the real issue is the DNA evidence. The DNA evidence is absolutely conclusive. The Igbo, for example, are simply not Jewish, not Hebraic, and not Israelite. The Igbo are not. And
Hamites.
So
you're going to are you going to say on record and say that they're Hamites? Say that on record, please.
All
please
Igbo,
say that.
All Nigerians. I don't know what they all are. Nobody knows what everybody is. That's how nations work. That's how nations work. But the fact is, they're not, as a people, Semitic. And DNA testing from a lab here in Arizona proves it. Huh?
You might be a crypto Jew because you're fighting so hard. You're fighting so hard against your own ancestors right here, man. So now, let's go to the information and stop running, dude.
Hey,
everyone can see that you're running from the information that I'm about to bring out.
What evidence? Raphael.
Okay.
The man who won't even show you won't even show your face. You just show pictures of books. What is your proof that Igbo are Israelites?
Cool. Here's my proof. It says on page 86, it says in Africa, genetic tests. So we're talking about genetics now, right?
Yeah, I've been talking about genetics. Perhaps you didn't notice, but I just mentioned the lab here in Arizona.
No, you're saying that they're Hamites. Essentially, because
do you not? Okay, let me explain how this works. Just because you're not definitively one people group, that doesn't equal that we then therefore know what you are because you're not a group. Okay, you can be all kinds of things. Number one, not being one thing doesn't automatically mean you are the other thing. Are Nigerians largely Hamitic by basing it upon basic biblical history and geography? It would seem so, yes. But to say all Nigerians or all Igbo are purely Hamitic or something like that would be foolish. That's the kind of claims you guys make, not me.
Who's you guys? Who's that?
Hebrew Israelites. You're clearly a proponent of Hebrew Israelism.
I'm just reading. I'm trying to read this book, and you're not letting me.
Well, I didn't. I'm trying to get you to prove your point.
Okay, now let me prove my point and stop talking, please.
Oh, bro, you're gonna get kicked off, man. If you're gonna have that kind of attitude.
Well, you're long-winded and you're an agent. We can all see that. So now let me.
Oh man, I might have to keep you on just because you're showing how silly this whole thing is. Listen, bro. Listen. It's like this.
You know, Sambalot made fun of them while they were building, and you see how much this information is getting out.
Well, bro, I'm not making fun of you building anything because you ain't building nothing. You're standing out with your flip-flops with highlighted books and a sleeping bag. What I'm taking issue with, my man, is the fact that you're accusing me of being a crypto-Jewish agent. Meanwhile, not answering any of my assertions, and even your own sources that you read disagree with you. It says maybe, and you're saying, are you going to disagree with Jewish scholars? The men who wrote the book that you're reading from would recognize themselves as Israelites and are speculative about the Igbo. So this is very confusing why you think you're standing on firm ground in those flip-flops.
Listen, the Christ not wear flip-flops. Get the hell out of here, bro. Argument.
Bro, I'm teasing. I'm clearly teasing you now because of your attitude towards me. It's a Christ wear flip-flops.
This is how I know what agents do. Agents, they don't want to deal with the information. They want to run away from the information that's being brought out. But it's too late. I already gave you the title of the book. People have seen the title of the book. They can go and they're going to look at it for themselves, and they're going to find out that you're a freaking agent. Now, let me read the information.
Check this out. Here's one of the books you had, right, Raphael? You had Lost Tribes in
Genetic
Promised Land.
Traced to ancient Israel. The origins of the Limba tribe of South Africa, which observes dietary and purity laws, reminiscent of Judaism. Then it says scholars, the Israelite, the scholars tend to dismiss that possibility.
Wait, are you
as
saying
well.
the Limba now? Hey, you and I, okay, no argument there. The Limba have been shown to be partially Semitic. There's no debate about that.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of Semites out there.
No, but hey, wait, Raphael, I don't think you understand. I believe in having positions that are nuanced.
Can I have an equal amount of talk? Can I have an equal time to talk, please?
Probably
please.
not. When you make an ignorant statement, when you make these blanket statements,
decency and the respect.
Raphael, when you make these blanket statements, it ends up coming back to bite you in the butt, right? And so I'm trying to avoid that myself. And so I'm trying to nuance some of my answers. Now, you were just about to read something by the Limba. You didn't even ask me my position on the Limba. The Limba are evidence that Semitic peoples did travel into Africa. But the interesting thing about the Limba, I thought you were talking about the Limba. I thought you heard you mention that. But the interesting thing about the Limba is that the oral history matches the genetics, and they are the exception to the rule, meaning the Igbo don't share the same features as far as the genetics that the Limba do. And the interesting thing about the Limba is that their genetics on key points match up with other people who claim to be descendants of the Jewish diaspora. So it's a fascinating thing. And it also shows that if you're really about the information, no one's afraid to say someone who is black could not be Semitic. No one is saying that. We're just saying, just like anything, You would have demonstrated. Now, here's what I noticed you did. I'm going to let you speak here in a second. Here's what I noticed you did. You started off the conversation by Native Americans, and then you ran as fast as Carl Lewis in the 1984 Olympics over to West Africa. You didn't give any evidence at all for the Native American aspect that you brought up initially. Now, I find that interesting, and I'll let you kind of get in the last word to see what you want to say, and I also want to know where your video camera went. But go ahead, Raphael.
Let me see. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Cool.
Wait. Where'd the other caller go? Oh, ma'am, don't leave. I'm gonna get you on in a second. See, I took two. Okay, hold on. Go ahead. This is your last thing. The other gal's on the line here. I'll get you on in just a second if that's the same caller returning. Go ahead, though, Raphael.
Okay. You know what I've noticed is that you spoke for literally almost like twice as much as I have. I've yet to actually bring out my point.
I agree. You have yet to bring out your point. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm bringing it out now. You believe in the Bible?
Yes, sir. Although I haven't heard any Bible from you, but yes, I do.
Okay. Can you go to the book of Acts chapter 13:1, please?
Acts 13:1. I hope you know as I do this that I did a whole show. I did a whole show on Acts 13:1 where I broke down the whole book of Acts 13.
Yeah, just bring it up.
The whole chapter.
Break it down.
I mean, just so you know. And so this is not new territory, and I implore you to check that out, okay? Now, here's what I noticed happened, though. You started with Native Americans, then you left them quicker than Marilyn Monroe left Joe DiMaggio, and then you went over to West Africa, and now you're leaving West Africa quicker than JFK dumped Marilyn and put him on the Bobby. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
You're an agent, bro.
All right.
You took an oath.
Now in the church of Antioch, there were prophets and teachers, Barnabas, Simeon, called Niger, Lucius of Cyrene, Manaen, who had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. All right, you want to keep on reading, or do you just want to read that verse?
I just asked for you to give the exegesis on 13:1,
okay.
didn't I?
Yeah. Excellent. So we have Barnabas, who we know was an associate of Paul, sometimes called the son of encouragement, was sort of in the apostolic circle there. We have Simeon, called Niger, and of course Niger comes out of a word that means black, which I've discussed at length before. And the fact that he's called Simeon, called Niger, shows that they all weren't black, because you only have one person being pointed out as black. That indicates only one person was black. But this shows the diversity of the early church. Then you have Lucius of Cyrene. We don't know for sure. Hold on, let me finish. I'm breaking it down, bro. Then you got Lucius.
Who? One person, right? You said one person. Who was he? What is his name?
Simeon, called Niger. So that would all the evidence would point that Simeon was black, right?
It says Barnabas and Simeon.
Well, it doesn't. No, it doesn't say and. It doesn't have the chi. The Greek conjunction chi, translated Kai. I'm going to bring it up on my Greek right now just to make sure. But actually, it does not say and. It's that's why it's in English. It's a comma.
Don't be a demon. Was Barnabas called Niger? Yes or no?
No, Simeon was called Niger. Read the book.
I'm reading it right now, and I read it in the Greek. Pull it up in the Greek.
Oh, okay. Wait. Okay, so there is a chi, and hold on. Hold on. Let me read it. Teha, Barnabas, Kai, Simeon, Ha, Kalomenos, Niger, Kai, Lucas. Okay. So in English, it looks like they put the comma as a chi. So there is a chi there. All right. I'm glad I looked at it, because I was wrong that there's no chi. So it does say Barnabas and, huh?
We got you, man. You already made your point. So one person was called Niger.
Yeah, one person. There's still one person called Niger. You know how I know?
Right. I agree.
Let me tell you. In Greek, Niger is singular. In the Greek here, in the text, I'm looking at it right now. Niger is singular.
Agree.
That's why
I agree.
Okay, so it's only referring to one person.
Now go to Acts 4:36. Give me exegesis on Acts 4:36.
You know what this is called, right? This is called Hebrew hopscotch. Did you just call me a bastard?
Yes, you are, because you're Jewish.
Oh, you are mean. You are nasty. Listen to you. And I thought we were going to be friends, Raphael. Whenever I see a guy in flip-flops, I always think, here's a friendly guy. He's rocking flip-flops. And here you are being all mean. Well, what's that all about?
You like feet, don't you, you weirdo? Go to Acts 4:36 and break that down.
Did you say I rape sheep?
See, look at you running like a.
Hey,
Read Acts
I
4:36.
don't rape sheep. You know why? Because it's bad. It's
That's
bad.
why I got it on camera.
It's
I got it
bad
on camera
to
so
rape
they can
sheep.
read it. I got it on camera so they can read it, so it doesn't matter. It says that Barnabas, by consolation, was a Levite. So that same person who was called Niger was actually a Levite. So deal with that.
All
Deal
right.
with it.
Yeah, I'll deal with it right after I let you. Do you have any final words? Because once you start calling me a sheep rapist and a bastard, I think the conversation is no longer going to be fruitful. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go.
Look at him. Ooh, look.
Wow. What is happening? Yo. Oh, and this is, you cannot make this up. All right, it looks like you got a guy. Oh, okay. Where did the, ma'am, you were on here and I saw you and then it dropped you off. I'm trying to find out how to call you back. I apologize for that. It went a little bit long. I think this is you. Okay, so I'm calling you back right now, okay? Hopefully you can pick up. 2 people came in the time that guy came in. Okay, sorry about that, Pam. I hope you can still talk. I had to speak to the other guy, but are you here now?
Yes, can you see me?
I cannot see you,
I
but
press that button in the middle.
there's that little green. There you go, Pam. All right, Pam, how you doing today? Sorry about that. Hey, it looks like you got a, what kind of shirt is that? Is that a Sola Grande? Oh, nice shirt. Okay, good. We got some good stuff going on here. Let me give you an applause for that. All right, nice shirt, and welcome to the smoke room, Pam. How you doing?
Thank you. I want to give you a break from all that heat that you received.
Oh yeah, so much heat in the smoke room.
So before we get started, I met you before at the first Doctor for the Block. I was in your Jesus White. I was wearing a Spurgeon shirt.
Oh yeah. That's the one that the Sakari secretly infiltrated.
Right. I think I set his table.
Oh shoot.
Okay. So this is not heat so much. I just want your perspective on what happened to me this morning. So I have a sister who is not a believer whatsoever.
Right.
And every objection she has is about why would I, as a black woman, want to believe a Bible written by white men? And this Bible also helped enslave black people. So today I went over to her house hoping to explain to explain the gospel to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I love her dearly, but she clearly said, I don't want your Jesus. I don't want your Bible. Bleep, bleep, Christianity. So how would you go about that if you love her, love your family member, and you want her to have an accurate picture of the gospel? And please forgive me, I'm a country girl, so if it comes off a little
Hey, that's all right. The last guy called from his backyard too, so it's all right.
So it kind of grieved my heart that A, she doesn't want the gospel,
Mm-hmm.
and B, she definitely doesn't want it from me.
Well, it's tough when you have somebody you love and care about that has such a harsh reaction to the best thing in your life, right? You know, the best, the most true, most beautiful thing in the world. As Keith Murray once said, the most beautifulest thing in the world, although he wasn't talking about the gospel. When you have that, and then the person you love and care about, they don't want any part of it. So that is hard on an emotional level. My thought is, never give up. So what I mean by that is sometimes you can feel personally rejected when somebody acts that way, right? You just have to brush that off and not react or take it to heart, even if it does hurt. You know, Christ suffered, and sometimes some of our hurt might be emotional hurt. I'm not saying it's equal to the cross. I'm just saying that we all can also suffer, and sometimes it's the hurt that comes along with this, right? And so you recognize your hurt, right? You can recognize it and admit it, but you don't want to let that stop you. And so if you can just adopt this attitude of it's never too late, and love conquers and love wins, and it's this idea of optimism. I don't believe on giving up on anybody until they pull the plug. Now, there's exceptions to everything. There's times when people become so hurtful or harmful towards you. It doesn't sound like that's where you're at with this situation. That for
Well, I
your
would say
own,
this.
yeah. Okay, go
I
ahead.
think I would just simply say that I won't give up on her. Definitely not. I just don't think because of so much family history, it's like you saying, how you going to come and give me the gospel and tell me I'm a sinner when I know all your dirt? I know who you are. So I think it's just that she may not want to hear it from me. I think it might be better if she hears from somebody else.
You may feel that way. I mean, Moses didn't want to tell Pharaoh, let my people go, but God still chose him, right? So you may feel that way, but do you really know that? You don't necessarily know that, because what if there is no one else in her life standing in the gap for her? What if there is no other living epistle, as Paul said? What if you don't know what's there and what's not? And you have unique opportunities and access that a lot of other people won't have. So, yeah, you can recognize you're a sinner, but then you can point to that's why the gospel is so precious. You could say, you're right about this. I'm not saying I'm better. That's why the gospel is good news to you and to me, because of how bad of a sinner I am. Like, whatever she says, just basically eat it. You know what I mean? And be like, but Jesus forgives. And you just point to that, because that's the reality. And you look at Colossians where it says he canceled our debt. That record, he canceled it out. Or in the Old Testament, even, it says that, he cast these things into a sea of forgetfulness. They're as far as from the east and the west. That's really, really good news. And so you want to bring that out, because, regardless of what she thinks about you, the fact that she's still a sinner and needs the forgiveness of Christ, no doubt about that. So just keep those things in mind. And you know what? If you're gonna kind of bring in some of the apologetic stuff, and I see you calling Otis, I'm gonna bring you on, but I'm gonna talk to the sister for a little bit here. If you're able to, you could even deal with some of those issues she brought out. For example, you know how the Bible's written by white men or whatever. Well, ironically, the last call I just had with the last guy, right? He made a point that is actually partially valid. What I mean by that is Acts 13:1 and the rest of that chapter. Simeon is called Niger. The early church is comprised of a variety of peoples. We recognize that. I don't know if he understood. I wasn't debating about that. I don't see how Simeon could be called Niger unless he was black. It wouldn't make sense. I guess it's hypothetically possible, but that wouldn't even make any sense. So I've always go to bat for that. Similar with Lucius of Cyrene in the same passage. It's highly likely he was dark. We don't know, but he is from Africa. This says Cyrene. We know for a fact that geographical location. So you have an African, clearly, and someone who was called black, along with other kinds of people, because if you look at the names and whatnot, and you look at the breakdown of the early church, you see a great diversity there. And maybe if she can kind of see some of that, like, hey, look, the Christianity has always been diverse. Or go to Acts chapter 2, Pam, and say, look, I know you said the Bible was written by white folks. Can I show you something here in Acts chapter 2? You flip that open, and you see how the people who heard that initial message by Peter were from all over the world, including Africa. You show, look, these people hearing this message who embrace this are from all over the world. Now let's leave Acts chapter 2 after I showed you that. And now I want to go over here to where Philip here is. I believe in Acts 9, if I'm not mistaken. It might be Acts 8, excuse me if I got it wrong. But I'm going to go over here where Philip is and look at the very first non-Jewish person who was brought into the early church. It's an Ethiopian. So God always had his eyes on people of African descent, and always was working to include them. And so you say, look, is this something a racist would include? Is this something that a white supremacist would have? So white supremacy is trying to tell you the Bible's written by white people. Shout out to Aaron Larson for the super chat, by the way. And I see you, Otis. Just finishing up here with Pam. You bring that out and say they've tried to tell us that, but when you actually look at the Bible, it doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say anything like that. It's very different what the actual Bible says. And I think that's important to bring out. I mean, to help people to see, because you know, the Abrahamic covenant, as it goes out, it's going to all families of the earth. And that's why you can flip to the very back of the book in Revelation 5, Revelation 7, and then say, and now look at the scene of God's people, every nation, tribe, and tongue. And that doesn't exclude anybody. That's from Cherokee to Igbo to Sicilians and everybody else. There's when you say every nation, language, tribe, and tongue, you're including all peoples of the earth who will be worshiping the Lamb. Maybe if she can start to see that, maybe it'll take down some of the defenses. But you might have a long, hard road, you know. But we'll pray for you, Pam.
All right, y'all be blessed.
Hey, no doubt, excellent, and thank you for the refreshing call. And we're okay with those kind of calls too, just so you know. It's not like people got to come on here and yell at me and call me crypto Jews and stuff like that. But that makes for good copy as well. All right, welcome to the smoke room, my man Otis. I'm saying my man, but it's not like we met. But hey, how you doing? It's good to have you.
Hey, I'm doing all right. How's it going, my brother?
It's going all right, man. What you got?
All right. Well, I was actually going across YouTube land and happened to see this and how the Hebrew Israelites were calling in. You were having interactions with them, but Revealed End Time Ministries is a ministry I started up. I deal mostly with Bible prophecy.
Okay.
And in my studies of America, because a lot of, I would say European Americans say that America is not in the Bible, which it is. And the angle that they never look at is, let's for instance, Daniel chapter 2, when Nebuchadnezzar has this dream of this big statue. And we notice that the head of gold, Babylon, and I'll go all the way to the feet, of partly of iron and clay. The one thing that all those nations have in common is the children of Israel were in captivity. They went into captivity in those nations. So now as they saying that the feet are, well, that's a revived European Union, or you revive Europe. So at what point will the children of Israel go into slavery and revive Europe? But that's not the case. Now, if we look at Revelation 17 and 18, the Babylon the Great, and Isaiah 47, and when you can compare the two nations, it's exactly the same nation. Behold, I sit as a queen and am no widow, and in 2 days death and famine, the plague shall come upon her. And what he says in Isaiah 47 and 6, as concerning America, as what I've studied, and he says, I was angry with my people. I have profaned my inheritance and given them into your hand. So he says he gave his people into the hands of America. And when I saw this, I'm like, hold on, you got to tell me, because I had this big thing. I was against Hebrew Israelism. I mean, their doctrine I do not follow by no means, but I say that by saying that, we are the children of Israel, I mean, according to prophecy, that's correct. And we will look at Judges chapter 2, verse 1.
Well, can I stop you on a couple of things you brought up? You said that Isaiah 47:6 is about America?
Yeah, Isaiah, the daughter of Babylon, is the U.S.
Okay, so when you look at Isaiah, so I'm looking at it here. I'm trying to. So you're saying because daughter of Babylon or daughter of the Chaldeans, you're saying that is the United States. So, so who do you think the daughter of Zion is?
The daughter of Zion?
Yeah, the daughter of Zion. Do you think it's a different people besides Israel?
No, it would have to be someone who's it has to be an Israelite if you're a daughter of Zion, because Zion is Judah.
If that's the case, why do you think daughter of Babylon is the United States?
Well, because what America is doing is mimicking ancient Babylon. When you go into Revelation 13, and it talks about how the false prophet will build this statue and have people to bow down. If you don't bow down, you'll be killed. And that's also Isaiah 47. As far as, what they will be, America will mimic. The reason why I say that, because the Antichrist and the false prophet will both come from America. And I know this sounds crazy, but the false prophet will actually be the vice president of the United States of America. These are the things that.
Okay,
go ahead.
I hear you on that. I'm not trying. I just because sometimes it's my own fault. But when the person brings up too many points, sometimes I'll lose track, and then I feel like I won't be. It's not your fault. It's just I'm not smart enough to keep track of all the various points at once. I'm really focused on the idea because I think it's important to you. It seems like to make this connection with Babylon and the United States as far as a one-to-one correlation. And part of the proof you used was Isaiah 47. But could I show you something from what I've looked at when it comes to ancient Near Eastern writers? Is that they would often depict cities as feminine in nature. This is a common practice, right? And whenever you would do virgin daughter, so the Israelites weren't the only one who used this terminology. And I have a couple of resources about the cultural background of some of these passages I could send you, so I'm not just like, making that up. But the term virgin daughter, you would usually address to a city or community that was facing impending doom or disaster. And the reason why is because an unmarried girl, a younger girl who's unmarried, she's absolutely helpless and defenseless. She doesn't have a husband, and she's not protected in that way. And for example, there's something called the Lamentation over the Destruction of Ur, and that's an early 2nd millennium BC Sumerian literary text, and that describes the fall of Ur exactly in the same manner. And the reason why I say that is to bring out, and I could also bring out some Akkadian references. The reason why I bring that out is just to show that it's might be problematic if we jump to the idea of daughter of Babylon. It means this people in the United States who are centuries removed from Babylon. And here's the other thing, Otis. Why is Yahweh giving this oracle against Babylon? It's because even though they were supposed to be an instrument of judgment against Israel, they did it basically too much zealous, meaning God is going to judge them because they went after Israel, even though so they're going to get judged themselves. But the thing is that means it has to be the Babylonian Empire. That wouldn't actually, this prophetic text of doom wouldn't apply to the United States because the United States is not in existence. It would apply, though, to Babylon that profaned Israel in that very day that Isaiah was writing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but Revelation is, we know, there's an end time book. We know everyone that reads Revelation should know that the Babylon the Great will be destroyed by the Most High Himself. There will not be another nation to supplant the Babylon the Great. And by this reasoning and what's being shown in the Bible, it has to be America, because Revelation 17:18 says, "And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth." Who's reigning over the kings of the earth now? America is the most powerful and richest nation to ever exist. It has to be in Bible prophecy.
Maybe it is. Maybe
it
isn't.
is.
I mean, when people say America is like ruling the earth, I always kind of wonder, is that really the case? I mean, you could make the point, Otis, certainly, that after World War II, that the United States and the Soviet Union were the only two what's called left superpowers, right?
Yes.
But the idea of the United States, like, I get that there's an element of sort of American success in the 20th and 21st century. I get that, but we all know that's not permanent. And I don't know, is America really the richest nation to ever exist? I mean, maybe. It depends on what factors you sort of measure it by. So I know what you're saying. I'm just saying, I guess when people make those absolute statements, I'm always not as sure about it as they are. And you said, therefore, it has to be in Bible prophecy. Well, help me understand the logical correlation between a nation being powerful and therefore must be mentioned in Bible prophecy in a specific way. I agree with you in broad swaths, America is in Bible prophecy. For example, being part of the Babylonian system, which is a wicked system of the world. America is there, but many nations are under that category. I'm having trouble understanding how you have Babylon, which is in ancient Iraq. It's still there, right? Iraq is still there, and the descendants of those people, they still exist. You know what I'm saying? The Iraqis and those people in those lands, they still exist, right? And most of them aren't in America. Most of them are in what's called the Middle East now, right?
Well, take for example, Babylon, ancient Babylon.
Okay.
It was so prideful. Look at America. Everyone's so proudful of this nation. I mean, they want to kill you if you bow down on your knee, and because you want to kneel for the national anthem. This nation is full of pride.
Just so you know, you and I don't necessarily disagree. America is prideful. America is being judged. America will be judged. We do not disagree about that. However, we don't agree that Isaiah 47 is speaking about the United States of America. And I have some information. I feel like I brought out enough that I think should hopefully maybe make you reconsider that position. You can still believe America deserves judgment, Otis, because I do. We could still agree on that, right? But that's different than saying, and it's mentioned right here for sure in Revelation 17:18, and I know it's mentioned in Isaiah 47, which I think, to be honest, is even a greater stretch, because then you didn't even have the Roman Empire, because you can make the argument hypothetically that the Roman Empire is then producing Europe, would then produce America. I guess you can make that argument, but that's more from Revelation. It's very difficult from when you talk about Isaiah 47, I believe. But just to be fair, brother, I know there's a lot of Christians who would agree with your perspectives. Some of your perspectives that I've heard. I recognize that fact, but I just want to discuss it with you. But go ahead.
Of course, exactly. That's what I got it from, actually, the Christian source of the daughter of Babylon, and God just went further with me. And far as the covenant, let's say Deuteronomy 28. And when we go to Judges 2:1, then the angel of the Lord came from, Gilgal to Bochim, and said, I led you up from Egypt and brought you to the land which I swore to your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. So when we go to the book of, when we go to Deuteronomy, actually, let's go to 31:16. And when he says this, he told Moses that he would sleep with his fathers, and the children of Israel go and play the harlot and break his covenant. So now what he's saying is that Deuteronomy 28, it's not a prophecy, it's a covenant. Granted, there's prophetic verses in there as far as 28:68, and the Lord would take you back to Egypt in ships. So what was he meaning by Egypt?
Yeah,
so when we go
the last point you just made, again, we agree on that. I agree that it's more covenantal than it is prophetic in structure. Right. And I think people do themselves a disservice when they don't recognize that. So I agree. I guess I'm trying to understand, though, is your main view that America is Babylon and the true Israelites are black folks in America? Is that the main point of what you're trying to say here today?
Yes, I'm saying that they are correct on that. Now, the other stuff about Christ and all this stuff I don't agree with, because I am a Christian man, first and foremost.
What do you think I've heard you give what you feel is evidence for Babylon being the United States. I've heard that. But what's the evidence you believe that you have that says black folks in America are actually Israelites?
Well, that's what I was going off of, as far as Hosea 9:3, when he says about, the northern kingdom, Ephraim or Israel, and he says, they shall not dwell in the Lord's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. So when we go look into 2 Kings 17:23, we see that Israel was taken away captive. They never went to Egypt. Now, when you go to Hosea 11:5,
what do you mean Israel never went to Egypt?
They never went back to the land of Egypt.
Well, yeah,
when he said,
they did. Josephus.
Go to Hosea 11:5.
Brother,
go to Hosea 11:5.
I will, but Josephus, as well as some extra biblical sources, I believe it's 3rd or 4th Maccabees, and there's some other sources that I can show you. All of them do say that Israelites ended up going back into captivity into Egypt. Have you read the passage in Josephus about this?
I've saw it, but I don't think it's correct, because they did not go in ships. Why would someone have to go from Egypt to Israel to Egypt in ships when you can just spit it to Egypt?
A few things about that. One is that there's evidence that the Assyrians did that very thing. There's evidence, and there's some journal articles I could share with you about this, that Assyria did transport people from the ancient Near East to various places that they were in control of, and it appears including Egypt. There is evidence about that. So the argument of why would you need to do it is actually not really a very salient argument. Besides, that there's a port right outside of Alexandria, and that port makes for very easy access from the environs of Israel into Egypt specifically. That's where Alexandria is located. And that's exactly where Josephus says they went. He says they went to this port that was outside of Alexandria. And so they did go there in ships. And if it's 3rd or 4th Maccabees,
I find that hard to believe.
Well, I'm just referring to the sources. I mean,
right, I've read it, but
Josephus is over there, and the 3rd or 4th Maccabees is right behind me. Both of us there, and the 3rd or 4th Maccabees, whichever one it was, I'm not saying it's biblical, but in that source, he actually says it was ships. He says it was ships. So, I mean, you have a situation where the Jewish writers contemporaneous to the Israelite situation, they don't agree with you. They are saying Israelites did go into Egypt, and they are saying they did it with ships. So I'm trying to hear what you're saying, but the fact is they did go into Egypt with ships. And if you're going to say they didn't, what's your evidence that Egypt is America? Because I thought you just called America Babylon.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying Egypt is America by no means. I'm saying that he used the word Egypt to mean bondage. Like when you go to Hosea 11:5, he says,
hold on. It says they shall return to Egypt.
Right. Hosea 9:3 says.
Let me show you how the grammar of Hosea 9:3 just doesn't go along with your interpretation. And I hope you're willing to listen to this. Check this out.
I am. Trust me.
The first line says, they shall not remain in the land of the Lord. So number one, it's specifically talking about land. And it's saying the land you won't remain in is Israel. So that's the first thing. So God is saying to them, you're not going to remain in this land, but where will you go? Ephraim shall return. So you're going back to a place. And notice it begins with, you're not going to remain in one land. Therefore, you're going to another, which is Egypt. And they shall eat unclean food in Assyria. So if you're saying the land of the Lord is literal and Assyria is literal, why is Egypt figurative? The very grammar and the very context of the text makes it where this Egypt mentioned in Hosea 9:3, it necessitates that it's actually Egypt, because we got land and we've got eating unclean food in Assyria, and we have returning to Egypt. Do you see what I'm saying by that? I think that's
I do. Go to Hosea 11:5 and read that one. And I think that should help you further on this Egypt.
Well, I wish we could
just read that Hosea 11:5 for me. That's
they shall not return to the land of Egypt, but Assyria shall be their king, because they refuse to return to me. All right, so
they shall not do what? Return to the land of Egypt. All right, this is Bible, my brother.
All right, so what are you saying? What's your understanding of what Hosea 11 says in light of you just had me read Hosea 9?
He was using Egypt to mean bondage, just like in Exodus 20:2 when he says, "I'm the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage."
Okay, then on that reading, Israel won't return into slavery.
You're saying they won't return to slavery?
If we go to Hosea 11, it says they won't return to Egypt. Then if you're saying that's what it means, then they won't return to slavery.
Return to land. Notice the word land of Egypt is there.
But land was in the passage I just read to you of Hosea 9. No, it wasn't.
Go to Hosea 9:3. Go back. I'll read it for you. Land is not there.
It's in the first line of the sentence there.
Land is not there, my brother. I didn't believe it either.
Well, I just read it. It says the land of Israel, right? So you're dealing with land still here. They shall not remain in the land. The Hebrew word looks like eris.
We're talking about Egypt, right? We're not talking about Israel.
So
we're talking about whether Egypt means. I don't want to confuse you, my brother.
Do you think verse 3, where it says Assyria, do you think that's land too?
What he's saying?
But I'm saying in Hosea 9:3, where it says they shall eat unclean food in Assyria. Do you think that means they'll be in the land of Assyria?
Yes.
But it doesn't say. But it doesn't say land of Assyria.
Go to 2 Kings 17:23.
Well, okay.
You can.
That's cool.
I'm just showing you Bible.
That's cool. It just feels like we're chasing around, not really dealing with the text you're bringing up.
We are. We're going to see that they did not return to Egypt. They went to Assyria.
Well, wait. Where do you think Jeremiah died?
That's a good question.
He died. Jeremiah died in Egypt.
Okay. Now,
Israelites did go into Egypt. There's even a passage, and if you want me to give time, I'll find it. It talks about Jeremiah, and it talks about certain Israelites, whether they would go back to Egypt or not. I mean, it's right there. It's if you want to ignore Josephus and the other things I brought up, okay, but you've got the issue of during Jeremiah's day, Israelites are literally going into Egypt.
That was when he told them not to go into Egypt, and they decided that they want to go down there anyway.
Right, so they're going to Egypt though. But I mean, you're right.
He told them not to go. He would never take them somewhere he don't want them. He told them not to go. When he brought them out, he said, "You are to never return that way again." Now he has a pattern. That's why I say he always puts the children of Israel into captivity, into the most dominant nations of their time. America is the most dominant nation in our time. Did America have slaves? Yes. The problem is that too many of us, we've been stripped of our history, so we really don't know. But when you dig into these pages like I did, you will see the truth That's his pattern. He never sways from his pattern.
I think it is important though to bring out Jeremiah 43.
Yeah.
When Jeremiah finished speaking to all the people, all these words of the Lord their God, with which the Lord their God had sent him to them, Azariah son of Hoshea and Johanan the son of Kareah, and all the insolent men said to Jeremiah, "You are telling a lie. The Lord our God did not send you to say, do not go to Egypt to live there." And it goes on. So they did go there, but you're trying to say they never did. But I'm showing you they did.
That what I'm saying, they went in there not by his command. He told them not to go down
Verse
there.
7 says, "And they came into the land of Egypt, for they did not obey the voice of the Lord." But you were saying they didn't go into Egypt at all.
No. I'm saying is that in Hosea 9, that was for Judah. I'm talking about the northern kingdom of Ephraim or Israel. They did not go into Egypt. They went into Assyria. There was there's nowhere in this book where they went into to Egypt. He was using it to mean bondage. That's what he was using. So if he says that Egypt is bondage in Hosea, so when he says it in Deuteronomy 28, which was his very first mention of it, he was talking about slavery, bondage. So why did the most dominant nation, as it is in the Bible, have slaves?
Well, I mean, every nation wanted to have slaves then. The Dutch, all the European powers that could get their hands on them, and prior to that, the Portuguese and the Arabs, and they had slaves as well. And the United States, of course, tried to enslave Native Americans, but it didn't work out. They knew the terrain, they escaped too easily, and they couldn't catch them again. So, I mean, they just wanted cheap labor. I mean, that's what people do. They don't want to pay a fair wage, and they want cheap labor. And America ended up doing it and had to justify the practice since it became a racially based system. They had to justify it with white supremacy and racism. So, I mean, it's not a mystery why nations want slaves. I mean, it's not really a mystery. You know what I'm saying? I mean, do you believe that Israel will have slaves in the eternal kingdom?
Oh no, I don't believe that crap, man.
Oh, okay.
I said I don't believe none of that crap.
But to the Hebrew Israelites who do, you know why they want them, right? They want to be served. They want that labor, right? They're not like the Son of Man who came not to serve, right?
Right. But now, speaking of the Son of Man, when he says in Luke 21:24, "And they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations," he was talking about the children of Israel. Now, is America a nation? Did America have slaves?
Yeah, America's a nation.
How about Brazil? How about Spain?
Yeah.
He used those ships to disperse them. That's what he did. And once the Antichrist is revealed from America, then we'll know 100% that the children of Israel are the African Americans. I mean, that's Bible, my brother.
But Otis, you never actually gave evidence that was the case. You never gave any evidence.
I gave you scriptures. Scriptures and history. The history should be automatically in your mind.
What about those passages tells you that black folks in America are Israelites?
It doesn't have to say black folks or Israelites.
Well,
whatever
terms you want to use.
God has a pattern. He has a pattern. He does not go read it yourself. He has a pattern.
Well, then by that logic, Native Americans are also Israelites. Do you agree with that?
Did the Native Americans go into slavery in Assyria?
No, Native Americans didn't go into slavery in Assyria.
Okay.
They did so. They did so over here on this side.
What about Babylon? What I'm showing you is the pattern that he puts them into slavery in the most dominant nation of the time. America is the most dominant nation in our time. Did America have slaves? Yes. Who did they enslave? The children of Israel. How did they get here? Deuteronomy 28:68. And the Lord will take you back to bondage in ships.
But see, notice you got to change the words of the Bible to prove your point.
I don't have to change it.
You said back to bondage. It says back to Egypt.
Right. They did not go to the land of Egypt. I've shown you.
They did go to the land of Egypt. I just showed you in Jeremiah, and I gave you extra biblical sources that you just said, well, I don't believe them. I mean, I'm trying. Look, I'll tell you
what about Josephus.
You're trying to make this a point, but you got to understand, you're saying, hey, I'm a Bible teacher, but what you're doing is you're having to change what the Bible says to prove the point.
I'm not changing it.
You said they didn't go into Egypt, and they did. You said, and since you didn't like Josephus and the other sources, we went to Jeremiah 43, right? They did go into Egypt, so that was incorrect.
What did he say?
But
he told them not to go there.
Yes or no? Did Israelites go into Egypt?
They went against his word. Yes.
Well, it's not how they got there. The whole situation is because they're disobedient. They're not going wherever Israelites are going into bondage. They're not going because they were obedient. Correct? We can agree on that. So the disobedience part is part and parcel to this whole joint. But they did go into Egypt from the Bible itself showing you this. So you're having to essentially ignore that as if they did not go into Egypt. Well, in the beginning, you said they didn't go to Egypt. Then when I brought it out, you said, well, they did, but this is only one part of the kingdom, and they're doing it disobedient.
I'm talking about when he does. I'm saying when he puts people
the Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 28 doesn't say nothing about that.
It matters.
Well,
how do they get it? And another one is, as far as them being Jews, we can easily refute that if we go into Genesis chapter 10.
All right.
And with Ashkenaz.
So with that, where do you believe modern slavery is occurring?
It's probably still around. I mean, it's some in Saudi Arabia that's happening with the Sudanese. I mean, it's still going on.
So the Sudanese then are Israelites?
No. What I'm saying is Saudi Arabia the most dominant nation? I'm giving you
make an argument. I mean, they control the oil. They control the oil.
America controls the currency. America controls
Saudi Arabia
the world.
Controls
all your
the
inventions.
Oil.
All your inventions, your major inventions happen right here in these United States of America. That's Isaiah 47. Speaking of that, your enchantments and sorceries, they just can't put it together because they're too busy trying to supply their own doctrine, which is false.
All your inventions didn't only happen
your major inventions happen right here in these United States of America.
Well, I mean, for example, do you
Look
think?
It up.
Do you think that the radio? Do you think radio is a big invention?
Yes, it is.
I agree. And guess what? One of my fellow paisan invented it. Guglielmo Marconi is Italian, right?
There you go.
Well, he wasn't in the United States, though.
Well, I mean, but a lot of them that came here were like from Germany. Let's say, for instance, the nuclear bomb. What was it? A German physicist.
I know, but I'm saying Marconi didn't do
But I get what you're saying.
He didn't do this in the United States.
My whole point was to say that look at the pattern that God has in this book. He does not move away from that pattern. In that pattern, he tells them, he tells Moses, they will break my covenant. And in Judges, he says, I will not break my covenant. So that means if he's declared the end from the beginning, Isaiah 46:10, which he has, that means the most dominant nation in our time will have to enslave the children of Israel. That's Bible.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but that's your thesis. The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't say check this out. Let me break it down. Maybe I haven't been clear enough. The Bible nowhere says the essence of what you're saying, which is this: the way to determine who the Israelites are in any given era is to look around and find out what the most powerful nation on earth is, and then see who they've enslaved. That is literally what you're telling me to do. You're saying the way I need to find out who the true Israelites are is looking around in any given era, find out who the most dominant nation is and who they're enslaving.
I'm saying that he doesn't go away from that pattern. That's all I'm saying.
Here's what I'm challenging you on. Where does the Bible say that's a pattern that tells you who's the true Israelites?
He says it's in Deuteronomy 28.
My friend, it doesn't say.
And they shall Deuteronomy 28:46. But here's another one that's kind of similar to what you're saying. And they shall be upon you for a sign and a wonder, and on your descendants.
It doesn't say anything about the most powerful nation on earth.
But I'm saying that's the pattern. Go find out the pattern.
Why are you but I hear you're saying that's a pattern. I've boiled down the essence of your thesis. But Otis, I'm asking you, why are you saying that's the pattern?
Because it is.
Well, it says who?
Each nation says the Bible. Daniel chapter 2 verse go to 41.
The Bible never says.
Doesn't have to say, hey, there's a pattern. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can follow the evidence. It's just like a crime scene. You have to follow the evidence. I'm giving you the evidence. Follow it.
Okay, but
that's all I'm doing is putting that out there. And once the Antichrist is shown here from America, you will know that the children of Israel went into slavery here in these United States of America. I'm a Christian man. I'm no Hebrew Israelite. I don't follow that stuff, but I'm just showing you the pattern.
While some people are noting in the live chat, you're simply asserting that's the pattern. You're saying I'm showing you this vocab, but you got to understand you are simply asserting that that's the case. You're saying here's what I've determined from my reading of the scriptures, and I'm telling you this is the pattern. The Bible itself does not say that that's the pattern. And let me give you evidence to the contrary. I'm gonna give you evidence to the contrary. You ready? During the days of the judges, That cycle lasted, I think, over 400 years. I forget the exact amount of time that the book of Judges was. It was a very long time in Israel's history. The nations who were oppressing Israel in that book, for the most part, were not the most powerful nations in the world at all. And they were enslaving Israelites. They were doing various things, raiding their crops, things like that. The Midianites, the Philistines, these are not the most powerful peoples in the ancient Near East.
At that time,
They were just more powerful than Israel. For example, some of them had iron chariots, and that was a strong military advantage at that time, for example, right? So I'm showing you how your asserted pattern is incorrect. God will use janky peoples to judge Israel. Do you remember the Battle of Ai? Remember how they had just routed, I believe Jericho was prior to that, when they came into the land led by Joshua? And Ai was like nothing, right? They could definitely be AI on a strictly military level. They get their butts kicked. They can't figure it out. It's because there was sin in the camp. Otis, the reason why I'm bringing this out to you is to show you that God will use any old nation. He'll use, if it was a boxing metaphor, he doesn't need to use, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't need to use Mike Tyson. He can use Glass Joe if he wants to defeat the boxer that is Israel, right? Little Mac or whatever, right? You just see what I'm saying? He'll use whoever he wants. Your pattern that you're asserting is not really necessarily meted out by the historical data. And I present to you the book of Judges as evidence that your pattern is not correct.
Well, that's where it starts from in the book of Judges. That's why I led with Judges. I said, if you notice in Judges, and the reason why he did that for those nations, because they were closer proximity to them.
Oh, well, you're right, but now you're changing your story.
No, it's not. Hold on. So then when we go to, as time, advances and we go into Assyria, Babylon, the Medes and the Persians, Greece, and the Roman Empire, and what happens when Rome kicked them off the land, because he said, I will pluck you off the land which you go to possess. And he did that with the Roman Empire, because we know that the New Testament still had to be written. Christ had to still come through the line of Judah. So therefore, he had not kicked them off yet, because these things had to be fulfilled. So when they were done, that's why Jesus tells them in Luke 21:24, you shall be led away captive into all nations. America is a nation. America had slaves.
Well,
Brazil is a nation.
All
Brazil
nations.
had slaves.
So if it's all nations, your thesis is that the children of Israel are going to be enslaved in the most powerful nation. And yet now you're reading a verse that says all nations. So which is it? Because if all nations are enslaving Israelites, it's not only the most powerful nations, is it?
Listen what he's saying. What I'm telling you is that pattern, the pattern is still there. He put Judah, if you read Zechariah 2:6, up Zion, you who dwell with the daughter of Babylon. The daughter of Babylon is America. That means Zion dwells with the United States of America. So he put Zion specifically in the U.S., and he surrounded the rest of the nations with the rest of the tribes. That's why people can't find him. So when you go to Genesis 9, Moses, when he got drunk after the flood, he woke up and he started putting out the curse on Canaan, not Ham, of course.
All
And he says, bless the Lord God of Shem. This is Genesis 9 and verse 26. And he said, bless be the Lord God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem. So, and Canaan be his servant. So now we look at Ashkenaz, who were the victims of the Holocaust, which, by the way, is not in the Bible. And we see that Ashkenaz, if you can look it up on your Wikipedia or whatever, they are descendants of Japheth. This is Genesis 10, 1 Chronicles chapter 1. And Ashkenaz is a descendant of Japheth, which is a Gentile. So that means Bible prophecy that was spoken by Noah is fulfilled in these end times.
So I
Even
think now you're trying to make the point that
well, no, what I'm showing you,
I know
I'm showing you both things.
You're trying to say that modern day Jews are also fraudulent there as
They
well.
are.
Okay, so I mean, really, brother, you are on the path to all out Hebrew Israelism here. I hear you saying you're a Christian Bible teacher, but I warn you in all sincerity, not like I'm better than anybody, because I'm just a dude chilling. I'm not better than anybody, and nothing like that. But once you start embracing these various components, and it seems like you're willing to change the parameters for your interpretive grid based upon what works. It's sort of an agile running back type of play, you know what I mean? Where you're like, okay, well, I'll go this way, I'll go this way. But that's not really good exegesis. And that's why I stopped you in the very beginning to say, let's talk about Isaiah 47. Because when we look at that, and we got to end soon because someone else is coming on, and then right in. When you look at Isaiah 47, everything about it shows you that the virgin daughter of Babylon are Babylonians. And I gave you examples from Isaiah 47:1 itself. Now, let me show you from Isaiah 47:2. Take the millstones and grind flour. Grinding grain in the flour mill was like the most menial task in the ancient Near East. Slave girls did it, like in Egypt and Mesopotamia. My point is to bring you back to verse 1 and verse 2, point to the very ancient Near Eastern context of this. And so does the other part of verse 2, because look, it mentions the veil. Well, in most A&E cultures, who would be partially veiled in public? It'd be a married woman, right? But slaves and concubines would not have the money or legal right to do it. And notice what it says: "Put off your veil." So that's continuing the poetic imagery to show that this person being described right here, these people being described, are actual Babylonians. And then you get to verse 47:5. The daughter of the Babylonians, that same terminology is described in the Akkadian literature. They would use it to refer to female inhabitants of a region. And so now this reference is personifying Babylon. And so you just look and you see the actual ancient Near Eastern context, and you realize you are dealing with clearly the Chaldeans themselves. And you go to Isaiah 47:13. What does it mention? Astrologers and stargazers. This fortune telling thing was this divination was big for them, right? This is what
as
they
here in
did,
America,
right? And so, but see, you're willing to skip to the American context and
well,
like
if you go to verse
right
5
over the Babylonian context. And in fact, there's even some evidence that the Babylonians themselves invented the signs of the zodiac around 500 BC. Now, if you look at all that, and this is clearly talking about Babylon, because then you get to 48:14.
Okay.
It says Cyrus campaign. It's speaking
Do
of
me
Cyrus.
one favor,
He's
Dick,
campaigning against
before I
actual Babylon. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
One favor before I go, because I know you got to close. Let's go to Zechariah. You just said that was Babylon. Let's go to Zechariah.
Yes, where it says 1. Babylon, it's actually Babylon, not America.
Okay, let's go to Zechariah chapter 1.
Okay.
And we're going to put this to rest.
Although you have the last word by reading this. Go ahead.
In the 8th month of the 2nd year of Darius, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo, the prophet, saying the Lord. Okay, I want to skip down. I want to go to where he says, so now you see in the 8th month of the 2nd year of Darius, that means who was in control at this point? The Medes and the Persians.
Yeah.
Babylon was defeated. So when he goes down to 2 and 6 and he says, where we at? Come on. Up Zion, you who dwell with the daughter of Babylon. So now we know that in 2 and 6, he's talking about the daughter of Babylon, which we just read in Isaiah 47. Babylon is defeated. Why would he be talking about a nation that's already been defeated?
Well, who defeated
That's
them?
what I'm saying. We have to look at all of the Bible. I know you believe in total scriptura and all that stuff too, right? You got to believe all of the scripture.
Well, brother, it says right here, you who dwell with the daughter of Babylon.
Yes. And Isaiah 47 talks about who?
So wait, you think that's saying you who dwell in America?
Listen to what I'm saying. Isaiah 47 is the daughter of Babylon. I'm showing you that the daughter of Babylon is still talked about after the destruction of Babylon. This is Darius is in power right now. And it's in the 8th month of the 2nd year of him. He's going on 3 years since Babylon has been defeated. So there's no way you can sit there and say
Certainly
that the daughter of
you
Babylon.
you got to understand the ancient Near Eastern context. Babylon,
Brother,
even though Babylon, right, even though Babylon is located east of Jerusalem, the way Babylon would come would be from the north. They're the enemy from the north being identified, because the traffic would flow in an arc around the Syrian desert. Okay, so the Babylons would come into Judah from the north, and the Israelites, inversely, would go into Babylon from the north as well. Zechariah is simply saying, leave the land of your captors. He's still talking about Babylon. I mean,
he's talking about the daughter of
But
Babylon.
notice how I'm giving the context here, and you're kind of just skipping over anything related to the ancient Near East. Here's a great book, because you may wonder, like, okay, where's vocab getting this?
I'll write it down.
It's called the IVP, Bible Background Commentary on the Old Testament.
You say
The
IVP?
yeah, IVP is the publisher. IVP, the IVP Bible Background Commentary on the Old Testament by John Walton, Victor Matthews, and Mark Chavala. So excellent commentary put out. That what it does is help get you understand some of the background, the sort of background cultural information to this. It specifically focuses on that, and it's really important so we don't leapfrog into a Western context and just leave the A&E when we do our interpretation. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I feel you, my brother. We have to give account for the most powerful nation to ever exist, and it is in this Bible. But thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me on.
No doubt. God bless. Shalom to you. It's good to meet you. Okay, there was another person who did call. Let me see. Where do you go? There's one more person. I think we can get one more in. Where did you go? You were just hitting me up, and I've kind of lost track of the information. I've only got a few minutes here, so I'm trying to get you back in right now. Whoever that was, could you call me? Is it you, Reginald? It looks like it's Reginald. I'm going to call you back, and I've only got about 15 minutes because I'm about to go on with David Wood. But I'm going to call you, and we'll see if we can get you on because it looks like you were on earlier. I'm trying to call you right now. Hopefully it works. And if not, it's all right. We got some other stuff we can do. It's ringing. I don't know if you guys hear that or not. Reginald, is that you? All right. Hey, I know you tried to get on earlier. We've got about 15 minutes max left, but let's have you be the final person in the smoke room. It's good to meet you there, and I got your message, and you are now on. And hey, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Pardon me, my brother. I'm sick. So I got the hiccups right now.
Sorry, as long I just wear a mask and you'll be all right. I'm just kidding, man. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, but someone just told me that you was up here, and was like, I'd like to talk to you. And I'm on the same page as you, but except for I'm an Israelite. I believe all nations can have salvation. Only thing I might disagree is that you might focus more on the other camps. So the world may think that all Israelites are like that. Not saying that's your intentions, but
yeah, I got you.
I don't think you're a bad dude. I've been watching David Wood too, actually, since before my awakening. And I have family that's Islam, so I know that that's the beast. I'm not sure if you all really know, but I have an idea that y'all do because y'all focus on that. So
yeah, Islam is besides secularism, is the most important ideology for anybody who cares about what's going on in the world to understand and deal with. Islam has been a powerful force ever since it emerged from the Arabian Peninsula, and it's really never stopped being relevant to world affairs. It's just in America, we are kind of isolated, and so we essentially ignored the reality of Islam and its, to be frank with you, imperialistic intentions until 9/11, and I still think there's a vast ignorance and a lot of problems in how people view various things, but Islam is massively important. I understand the majority of Muslims in the world are what I would call peace-loving, but the trouble I've seen is that as a Muslim becomes more and more serious about the sources of Islam, their ideology becomes more radical and more problematic for them to be able to basically get along with other people in society. And so the more
fear of God, and that's why I don't hate him.
Say what? What'd you say?
Out of fear of God. That's why I don't hate him, because they're just doing it out of fear. It's what they believe to be God, so they fear him.
Right, but that's what they say. But of course, you know, people often will rationalize whatever belief they have by saying, you know, God is behind it. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of Muslims are simply deceived because I don't think Muhammad had any experiences with God at all. And I don't find him to be a particularly godly man in any way. And that's partially what our series Islamicize Me is about. Now, the average Muslim, they may be deceived. Oh, yeah, you checked it out? Yeah, well, we drop new episodes.
Since the beginning.
Oh, right on. That's good to hear. Yeah, we drop new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. But so, you know, we look at that. Islam is a real issue. But I noticed that even though there's a problem in dealing with Islam, Reginald, that there's not many people dealing with Hebrew Israelism. And so that's why I focus on it. Huh?
I go at both. Like, I live in New York. Y'all want to work together? I'm willing to do that. I'm on the Upper West Side. I have no problem doing that. I go against the beast more because they prophesize in the book of Daniel and Revelations, all the way from the Old Testament to the New Testament. That's Islam. I focus on my brothers because I don't want them blinded by their hatred. Like say like the Democrat Party, they get our black people blinded by their hatred, destroy the family and many things like that. And no different from the Nation of Islam, and the Israelite camps are no different, you know, so they have the same tactics.
Are there particular Israelite groups or teachers, Reginald, that you think are worthy to be held up as doing a good job?
If they're in the camp, no. If they're in the camp, no. 12 tribe chart is toilet paper like the Quran. I don't care if I'm on camera. All of that's trash. Esau is not the white man, it's the Arab. I talk to the Arabs every day in New York. I live in New York. One thing, Genesis 28, verse 9. Esau married Ishmael's family. Esau, the Arabian, just putting an E in front of Esau, just put in front of Saudi Arabia. There's many things right there. And in Petra, and Muhammad was from Petra. All the original mosques were pointed towards Petra. Like, I get deep into this. Like, I started with David Wood, and then I just started getting into the truth, and then going the back and forth, because my grandma always let me know about watch out for the beast and the Antichrist. So I have family that's Islam, and a lot of them, like my cousins, they know rappers that's real popular and stuff that's Muslim. Mm-hmm. And like I had a chance to actually get a chance, but I messed it up probably. But I'd rather do that than damn my soul. But they're the beast, and they reject the Father and the Son. So that just gave me a warning right there. And then many other things.
Yeah, you know, so Reginald, you're right about that, and that's a big problem there. You said they reject the Father and the Son. Almost every Hebrew Israelite I know, regardless of if we agree about so-and-so's ethnic background, this person, that person, almost, not all, but I'm talking like 98%, Reginald, reject Jesus as deity in an unqualified sense, and they reject his equality with the Father. And
I wouldn't be surprised. They don't hear the voice, because like you gotta go by what the Messiah says, not by your own will or your own understanding. He says, "Yo, my people, my sheep know my voice." So the ones who know his voice, whether they Israelites, real original Christians who keep the law, statute, commandments, don't eat pork, they're gonna know not to. They're gonna want to obey God and everything that He says. And He said He's the Son of God. He is the Son of God.
Well,
that's what it is.
So you mentioned keeping commandments and not eating pork. So, for example, like, you know, we got circumcision, right? You recognize that circumcision was very fundamental to what it meant to be identified with the covenant people.
I know exactly what you're gonna say,
right?
For the baptism and all that stuff. Well,
I'm gonna ask you, since I'm okay with people saying for whatever reason I don't eat pork. I don't try to get people to have a ham sandwich if they don't want a ham sandwich, right? I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? However,
it's your soul, man. I still gonna.
Well, that's the question, though. So, would you say someone who is not circumcised, because you just said it's your soul? Let's say I'm like, hey, I'm not circumcised. I don't want to get circumcised. What would you say to me?
See, that's a different situation here. The Most High had consideration because these are adults that were not circumcised since they were kids. So He knew it would be hard. So it was like, you know, through the heart.
My friend,
you know, so
I hear you. I hear you.
Mine.
What did
God does? Huh?
What did God tell Abraham to do, though? What did He tell him to do?
He said, "Yeah, all of them must be circumcised." Yeah. And people born in Christ, but this is a different type of birth.
How old was he, bro? That man was 99 years old. Genesis 17:1.
You gotta understand what
Abraham's out here.
Is a spiritual.
They taking a knife. They taking a knife to Abraham's Johnson. He's 99 years old, bro.
Yeah, I just had a son, and I made sure he was circumcised.
Yeah, did you do it on the 8th day?
I ain't do it on the 8th day.
Well,
but
then you did. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but you didn't keep the law.
I mean, one thing, I'm an Israelite, so I'm in captivity. So these rules that you think you're gonna apply with the camps, one thing, these camps, they technically you might try with them.
Why couldn't your son get circumcised on the 8th day just because you're in captivity?
Well, I was in the hospital and just
they do it earlier. I know
as a father, as a black man, we don't have that many rights. I'm gonna tell you like that. As a black father,
if you tell them when you want them to take that tip off, they're gonna have to listen to you. You come back a couple of days later, they're gonna fight you, but you can tell them no, 8th day, because guess what? That's what the Jews do.
Well, maybe I was some my ignorance. You know what I'm saying? To get I wasn't, sometimes,
I'm just saying,
that's
and
why.
I'm not trying to put
One
this
thing
on
is,
you,
one
because
one
if
thing
you
about
want to
the law,
keep the law, you got to keep the law.
no one's perfect. You know what I'm saying? No one is righteous. No one. It says that. So I'm trying to the best of my ability, and God knows that I try.
Right, but bro, that's why we focus on the cross. Eating a ham sandwich doesn't send you to hell. Rejecting Jesus does.
But the thing about the Israelites is they have to keep it for generations, forever and ever.
But didn't Peter
Right,
get
okay.
didn't
Just like the
Peter
people
get
that
dealt
said
with
to
on that
ask,
topic? Remember what Paul told him? He said, "Hey, why are you trying to put this law on these Gentiles when we nor our fathers
I
never
that.
could keep it?" Right? They couldn't keep it.
So, see, I
Paul
just
put
answered.
that in his face. But you see what I'm saying? But I'm not saying,
God,
hey, I'm not saying you shouldn't circumcise your son. I believe in circumcision, just so you know. But I'm just making the point, bro, that Peter got dealt with on that very topic. Paul said, "Hey, we haven't been able to keep it. Our fathers haven't been able to keep it. So why are you trying to put it on these Gentiles?" Remember that?
he's talking about the Gentiles, though. See, you got to put
No,
it in
but you missed
context.
my point. In that discussion,
I
Paul
think
was recognizing we never kept it, bro. We never kept it, Peter. Peter didn't
it's about he's.
argue. Peter didn't argue.
But listen what the Bible says. It says there's one thing the Bible says. We know that Jesus is the person in the Old Testament. No one saw the Father and Son. So he doesn't change his mind. That's what he says in the Bible. He clearly doesn't change his mind. And the covenant is forever and ever. But the Israelites, for the Gentiles. And another thing is, I'm gonna use an example. Just like it's lawful to do good on the Sabbath, I'm gonna give an example. Just that was an example of God is like a prick, like he has a heart. So he had a heart for the Gentiles. It's like, yo, it's for like, spiritual, like baptized and thing like that. For that, which I answered that already. And then to the Ashkenaz, was one thing. Because you ignore this all the time, I noticed that. Genesis 10, verse 2 and 3. Japhet had Gomer. Gomer had Ashkenaz, disqualified. Sephardic Jews, 2 Kings 17:24. It says they were placed there by the king of Syria. Now, if this is the book of the Jews, this is supposed to be their book.
Nah,
their name.
I never say that, bro. I just so you know, Reginald, I never say this is the Jews' book. This is God's book. Jews,
the Old Testament, Torah.
Huh? They were simply, according to Romans, Paul just says, hey, they're blessed, they get props because God did choose them to bring forth the oracles of God. I don't deny that as far as the Old Testament scriptures.
He dealt with one nation, Israel, right?
Say
he only dealt with Israel. He only dealt with Israel. He said he only dealt with one nation.
No. I mean, you read Genesis where he says that he's going to bless all the nations of earth through Abraham, right? He does that through the Messiah, not through all Israelites. He does it through the true Israelite.
Well, okay, yeah. I'm giving. What is Israelite supposed to be? A light to the world, to lead people to the commands, but we couldn't keep the commandments.
No. Hold up, bro. Reginald, I like you because I know you got a good spirit, right? So this is just good spirited thing.
I love you too, my brother. Shalom.
You're a dude that if I came to New York, I'd like to meet up with you, kick it, all that, right? And we could have.
I ride with Sean Price. We could do something, man. I don't care about commercials.
And we can have pizza with no pepperoni or no ham, just mushrooms or something like that, right? Now check it out if you like mushrooms. Now check this out because I like mushrooms with tomatoes on my pizza.
Mushrooms cool.
Yeah, so check this out. When you look at this, you just said, and then Israel's supposed to lead them to the law, statutes, commandments. Brother, aren't they supposed to be a light to the Gentiles, ultimately to lead them to Christ? No, but to lead them to Christ, to lead them to Jesus, not to the law, statutes, and commandments.
What's the word? He is the command.
You're on hold right now. I don't know if you just hit a button. Reginald? It says you're still here, but it says you're on hold. Yes. Let me see if it's on my end. I'll try to. There's like a little pause button that's saying. Reginald? Here, I'm going to hang up and call you back, okay? And then I've only got 5 minutes, so what I'll do is I'll let you do the final shout out or whatever. Hey, shout out to everybody in the live chat. I do see you guys in the live chat.
My cousin just called, yo. I was like, yeah, I'll call you back, yo.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I'll let you. Hey, check it out. I'm actually going to be on with David Wood. I know you mentioned you watch David Wood. I'm going to be on his channel.
Videos. Tell him I love him. His videos. You probably don't understand. You read comments sometimes. You add attitude. Yeah. I'm just cocky, just like how y'all are. You know how y'all talk.
All right, bro. Maybe you can be in a skit one day.
Hey, I would love to do that, for real. One about Islam. Oh, yeah, definitely one about the people who sold my ancestors, Psalms 83.
We just might have to have you shave your mustache so you can play the part of a Muslim. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, I gotta keep we could cover it now.
Okay. like Henry Cavill in Justice League. It's all good.
See, normally Yeah, but I just shaved it so I could fill in the patches right here on this side. On this side's pretty much full, but
I got you.
I don't
But
want
check it out. I'll let you make whatever final thing you want to make, because check this out. I gotta go because David Wood and I are gonna be on his channel in about 15. Well, I got to get ready. It's less than 20 minutes now away. We're gonna talk about UFOs and stuff like that, and Ezekiel 1 and stuff like that on his channel. But it's today, it's tonight, so I got to jump over there. So I'll let you say the final thing, and hopefully we can talk again at another smoke room. Say what?
I said I'm subscribed to both your channels and the black guy. Dewey, I forgot. It starts with a D or something like that.
John
I forgot.
McCrae or Adam Coleman?
The other guy was dressed like the samurai when y'all was like preach home and everything in the street.
John
That was
McCrae.
fun.
What do you meme?
Yeah, that's
What do you meme?
Instagram.
Yeah,
he's mad.
What do you meme?
But I ain't gonna hold y'all up, y'all. I appreciate y'all giving me the time, and hopefully we could build later on and just go against the beast Islam, because they starting to take over. You saw what's happening with in Turkey right now. So
Oh yeah, that's no joke, man. That's no.
You know,
so,
the feet of iron clay is an Ottoman Empire. So that's them. Because remember, the Ottoman Empire ended in 1923. So that's basically them saying that we're back. But we have to wait for Iran to make their move, because Iran is the ram, and then Turkey's the goat. And then we just watch from here.
So what'd you say when you comment on David Wood's videos? What's your name, your handle on there?
Moses David Pratt.
Moses David Pratt.
You can follow me on Facebook, Moses David Pratt, and on Instagram is 4 number,
okay,
and Yah YAH and 87. I think it's 4 87. I'll probably just leave it in here.
All right, no doubt. Hey, God bless. Let's talk again sometime, Reginald. Good to meet you.
Bless my brother. I'm happy to talk to you.
Hey, no doubt, man. I hope you have a beautiful day and stay safe, man. It's dangerous being a black dude in New York with the cops and everything. I'm just saying. Someone's going to get mad that I said that. Hey, Judah the Lion, are you going to call in or not? We've only got a few minutes. I mean, this show has been running the whole time. But I got to get out of here because David's going to go. David's going to start without me or something like that. But he don't know jack about aliens. I'm just kidding. David knows something about everything, actually. All right, so here's what I'm going to do, guys. We can't do any more, show. It looks like you didn't call in for now. So we'll get you on another time. And what we're going to do is end the show with, yeah, that's right. Yes, y'all, we're to end the show. Peep it out now, 444. The time that I got to leave, now I rock the mic, I do it with ease, at ease disease. Feel my breezy degrees, cause it's like leaves. Palm leaves say, hey, Yahweh, hallelujah, hey, on Good Friday, hey, that was right before Jesus the Christ, not a metaphor, he's a real Lord. He's a road warrior, Lion of Judah, so you know that he roar. He's Jesus the Christ, he's coming back. It could be tonight, I don't know when, but he will free you from your sin, my friend. Whether it's juice and gin, or the Timberland, walking where it shouldn't go. Check it out now, Ohio, Columbus. It's on my hat, I got the Soko beat, he brought the boom bap. Justice in the back, chilling on the couch like that. He's lazy, matter of fact, he pat. Oh, I guess I meant pant, but now I rant. Jump on the mic, some say that I can't. Hey, I will lick him like a stamp. I'm not a Mike Ty, I still beat the champ. It's amp, and now I'm feeling damp, kinda sweaty. Eating on my spaghetti that I made with some lemonade. Jesus the Christ, thank God I got it made. Not really paid, but A, it's all good. Giving A to the great in the hood. Why? Not because I kept the law, because what he did on the cross, yes, y'all. Ha ha. In the cup ain't alcohol, but it's water. The sons and daughters of Babylon are Babylonian. The dude, check it out now, here we go again. Flowing again on the microphone, my friend. Now I come flipping out just like the wind. Turn it up to 10. turn it up to 10, maybe fall in, make it 11 till we go to heaven. The perfect number, they say is 7, but I don't play no lottery. Nah, Satan, get up off of me with the tax in the convenience store. 1, 2, 3, 4. Vocab alone like a matador, dodging the bull. Here we go, now we got the score like Jordan on the floor. Gonna win the war. Hey yo, check it out, what you come inside for? Judah the lion, I'm sighing. You didn't come right beside him. I call you chameleon, I met chameleon. Hey yo, a million. I'm not really feeling Sicilian. Why? I'm a crypto Jew. That's what the folks call accused to me. 2, and check it, mic check 1, 2. Soko in the break, yeah. Duo, the beast kinda ill. Vocab don't chill, spinning around like I do a windmill. Now we kinda ill, not a picker like a dill. I got that skill, you know that it's real. Evander Holyfield, but I'm keeping my ear. Beat is dope inside the atmosphere. Gotta enunciate, gotta make it clear. Hebrew Israelites are just like a deer in the headlight, coming with the 4-3-50. People out now, they looking so shifty. Hey, hit D, more like DiMaggio. Vocab Malone, call me oregano. Blow on spaghetti-o, but no boy RG. Vocab Malone, now I spark the party. Yeah, hey, go to Arby's, cause I got that beat, now I sparky. Microphone like Noah inside the darky. Got a car key, can't lose it, John Markey. Not a Marky Mark, funky bunch, captain like Crunch. Vocab Malone, yes I will punch. Oh!